Hey everyone, Sawmill Charlie. Welcome to another Friday night bee chat. Looks like everybody's in here already. Got Shane and Mike and Richard and Darren up in Pennsylvania and Stuffy and Roy. Hey Tario, Russell. And let me go ahead and get the link thing set up and so everybody can come in. So hopefully everybody had a good weekend from as far as last week goes. And of course, I guess everybody knows Bob stopped by and spent the weekend with me, and that was pretty amazing or fun. And there we go. Trying to get things. I almost got it going here. Oh. There. Now I can drop the link. So, Bob, I'm sure Bob will be in a little bit. We had a great time together. He's got here late Saturday evening, and we went out to dinner. He got his crabs that he had talked about, and I got a crab cake. Here's Tom. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Charlie.
How you doing?
Tired.
You're tired. Been in the bee yard
Tired.
working?
Four swarms the last 2 days.
Is that your swarms or somebody else's stuff?
Somebody else's. One's on the west side of Cincinnati.
Well, so what did you do with them? Just box them up and bring them home. Now you got more than what you had before.
Yeah, 3 of them were boxed up. Ones from the neighborhoods,
Yeah.
Cincinnati area, and actually 2 swarms came in today that flew in. One was a monster swarm, biggest swarm I've ever seen. It filled up 2 deeps and a medium super.
How many pounds was that thing? About 10?
It was huge. It just kept coming in, coming in. And then when it finished, another swarm was right behind it and went to the same tree.
Mm-hmm.
I got a cedar tree between 2 boxes, and they all landed on the cedar tree, both swarms. So I filled up 2 nucs and 3 boxes.
Hmm.
Crazy.
I've never seen a swarm that big.
Me either. But I have a friend beekeeper that's about 3/4 of a mile away, and he keeps 7 hives only for honey production. And starting the first of the year, he feeds and feeds and feeds and feeds to make the biggest hives he can make. He likes to get 7, 8, 9, 10 boxes high.
Hmm.
And I think I got one of his.
Okay. Hey, Lee. Hey, Bill from down at Shenandoah Bee Supply down there in Woodstock, Virginia. Glad to
I
see
gotta
you.
say hi to everyone.
I'll have to stop by Bill's place one day. I go that way quite often. Not too often, but enough. I travel 81 quite a bit. But there's Danette, Jack, and
Brighton, Mike.
well, I had a big week in the big week, big weekend, big week, everything. Of course, Bob and his wife came up and got here late
Right.
Saturday evening. We went out to crabs, and I had crab cakes. He had crabs. I'm not a picker. And so went out to dinner and had a real nice dinner that night. Then he showed up Sunday morning about 9:30, and of course we did a live for about an hour and 15 minutes, I believe it was, kind of going through hey Matt and hey Doug, and did all that, and then he did videos of the mill, and then we left here, I guess about 1 o'clock, and went up to my friend Lloyd's place, who's a beekeeper and supplier, and he's a man lake dealer, and he's the guy that I helped go down and drive the truck to get a load of bees from out of Georgia. And we spent the rest of the afternoon up there, and him showing his bottling plant, as I call it, where he's got, I think it's either 4 or 5 tanks that'll hold at least a barrel of honey that are water jacketed, and then he has a piston filling machine where it uses like a piston pump, basically a machine like Bob Benny has, where you set the numbers for certain size bottles, and it limits the stroke, I guess you would say, of the pump. And so we talked about all that and about barrel honey and all the things that he has to do all that kind of stuff and things of that nature. And then it was getting pretty late, and we left there and went up. I think Brian from Flower Street would say my favorite place, but it's not actually my favorite place. It just happens to be close by, which was a Cracker Barrel right up in the edge of Pennsylvania. They were going to
Favorite place.
Yeah. They were going to go to Gettysburg, which is not, maybe an hour from my friend's house. So I took them on up into Pennsylvania, and we had supper together. Hey, Kathy, and from Shenandoah. And so that was a really fun time. Really didn't get into any bees because the nucs and the queens that I had been ordered through my friend. Actually, they arrived that Sunday around 6:30, 7 o'clock, something like that. I left Bob after we had ate, and then went back to my friend Lloyd's house. And about a half an hour later, they rolled in with a probably an 18-foot, 20-foot flatbed truck with a Hummer bee in tow on a trailer. And so I got on a bee suit along with his daughter and the daughter's boyfriend, and the pro nucs came on a pallet that were stacked 3 tall, and there was 24 of them on a pallet. So we had it prearranged to where he put the pallet down, and then there was an empty pallet on the left and on the right. So we would take 8 nucs off and put the 8 on individual pallets. So when the people came, they could pick up whatever nucs they wanted. And so and then my friend Lloyd's got a Hummer bee also. So we picked up, we had two machines running at the same time, and that kind of thing. So, and we're looking at James. No, what's it? 300 bees, and the queen didn't think they will be 50% loss. I'm not sure what he's talking about, but
me either.
Talking about James. Yeah, I actually had a 50% loss this year in my honey production area. I think due to bad queens. So anyway, queens and everybody thing came in. So I went up there Monday night.
Well, my late season queens, like
Hey,
late
Gail.
August queens, I had 7 of them and 4 of them didn't make it.
Hmm. I got a
It's
new
been,
member, a new subscriber, Gail. There, she was here at the sawmill
yeah,
today, and they've got about
okay.
4 or 6 hives and all that.
Hello, Brian.
Hey, there's Brian. Hey, Rodney. So anyway, I went up Monday evening. I picked up 10 nukes and I picked up 15 queens. And they were queens were in a individual queens in of course the cages, but they didn't have any attendants. They were in a battery box. And
Right.
the top bar, uh, I don't do no top bars here.
Well, me either.
So
Monster horizontals though.
hmm,
So what
I
I
know.
do with these nukes, swarms I catch, I put them in typically 10 or 5 frame boxes, and the next day I'll find a queen, and they already will have honey on one of the frames or 2 frames. So I'll
Mhm.
just take the queen and one of the honey frames and throw them in the nuke. Then I take the other bees and I shake them into some of my hives my production hives that need a little help, and
Mm.
then I'll let that nuke,
Do you
that
find that
2 frame.
they do better in these long lang hives? They're I mean, I always found with top bar hives, the bees never wanted to go sideways. Of course, they're also building their natural comb on most of them. Where a long line, you have a frame system and you have a area for them to draw. Do they seem to do a much better job? I think.
No, I have to always keep moving frames into them
Mhm.
to keep drawing them. They'll draw out maybe the 10 frames. You know, if you start with like a 5 frame nuke, they'll
Right.
double it. That seems about it. You got to put move frames into it and get them out to about
Well, do you
15
do any?
frames.
Is there any real honey production out of those hives?
All the ones I have, I use for mating nukes, except for my one, and I don't have bees in it yet. So I don't know yet. I'll find my next 3 swarms are going in there because all my production hives, except for one, are up to par on the size of number of bees I needed them with these swarms.
Right. So anyway, I went up Monday night and grabbed the bees and brought them home, and I had, like the 10 boxes of bees and nukes. I had, the positions laid out um, where I um, what would you call it? Wanted them placed, and then so I Tuesday our weather was going to be the best, and then the rest of the week was going to be cold, and it's still chilly out there, and it was sweatshirt weather this morning, the last 2 or 3 mornings, and now it's supposed to get up to around 80 degrees, I think, come Sunday, and then all next week is really super hot. So anyway,
Yeah, we hit 80 today.
right.
Yeah, so
So
it's
I
coming
took
your
off.
way.
Yeah, I made some deliveries on Tuesday morning, and then I jumped into the bee yard and hey, Jason, and um, so the first thing I did was start installing queens. My nukes that I had sold were about 2 weeks queenless. I found 3 of them that had requeened themselves, and they were doing pretty good. They had some really, nice fresh eggs and some larvae and all. The rest of them I went
Yeah,
through, I had to go through, shake the bees off frame by frame, make sure there wasn't any voluntary queen cells, which there wasn't much of that kind of stuff in those hives at all.
right.
Um, I took and, I usually, they were deep nukes. So I found some real long rubber bands, and I can't remember where I bought them because I need to buy some more. Might have been at Staples. And I rubber band my queen cages in on the side of the comb, especially if it's close to brood. I always like to put them next to the brood so they'll get covered up by the bees at nighttime.
Right.
And like this past week, we had a advisory of frost at night and things like that. Not that we've seen any, but it was advisory of that. And so it took me about, I guess I started 10:30, 10:45 in the morning. I never stopped till 3:30. Got all my queens in. The biggest thing is some of the bigger hives. So I got to change that background. I thought I did already, but I um, took and had to go through every frame. Of course, you got like 20 frames of mediums, and now those hives, they were at least queenless for 5 days. So there was a lot of queen cells in there. They weren't capped or anything, but they were developed. So I had to, take my hive tool to them
Right.
all.
Stop them all.
And so I went ahead and did all that, and then finally, put it, what rubber band all the queens into there. So I did all that, and then took a break, got something to eat, and rested my back. It was getting pretty achy, bending over and doing stuff, and then I came back, and then I started transferring the nucs from the pro nuke boxes over into the woodenware. And so that didn't take hardly any time, really. And I did some expansion. So I went from 12 honey production hives to 16. Actually, I think it's 17 because, and I went in the 5 that I expanded with are deep boxes. So since I've got the hive lifter, I'm going to try deep boxes and see if that doesn't work just as well. And then I had a medium hive. There was one 10 frame medium hive and there was a lot of bees. And I think I dequeened it. And so I looked it over. There wasn't any laying worker or nothing like that. And so I took and when since those other hives had some voluntary queens in there, I took one of the queen cages for one of those and put it in that. So on my racks behind me, you can see that I usually have 2 hives and then there's an open space in the middle. So there's going to be one rack there that's going to have 3 hives on it. And,
Man,
it's a little bit tight quarters, but I said, well, there's no, if I got the bee power there, I might as well put a queen in there and see what I can do with it.
right.
So, we'll see what happens. But prior to me putting these new queens in, I went out the week prior on, I think it was a Thursday. It was one of those days that it was in the evening after work, or at least I had some sunlight because we had a lot of overcast, a lot of rain type stuff. And I found I had to dequeen 7 hives, and I was able to get 5 out of the 7, and then I had to wait that Saturday and get the other 2 whenever I had good sunlight and found the 2 queens. And so like I say, they were all with weather conditions and queens coming in later. They all had at least 5 days of not being queen right. And I think that will help the acceptance part of the queens. And
Shouldn't be any problem then.
yeah, so I've got all new 2024 queens in my hives. I've got all the holes filled with nucs. 5 out of the 10 nucs I put in 10 frame deep boxes, and I had enough drawn comb to put with them. So I'm hoping to maybe get a super honey out of those brand new hives. And the nukes were phenomenal from Kudix, as far as I was concerned. Pretty much 4 frames of slab brood on them, and then
Well,
maybe the
four
fifth.
frames.
Yeah, well, no, 4 frames of slab brood, and the 5th frame was open larvae in all stages. So it
Wow.
was, and never seen the queens, but and the thing were full of bees. I mean, just every coverage on every frame was completely covered with bees. And some of the frames were probably like bees were like an inch thick on there, or at least a half an inch thick, bees on top of bees.
Right, right. Bees on top of bees.
And
Well,
they
you
were
might,
all they
you
were
might,
pretty much all like that.
well, if you got all that cat brood, you'll probably have a pretty good population in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Well, yeah, because all the brood was all dark brown, so they're getting ready to emerge within the week or so. Hey, Mike,
Right.
and so I'm looking at that, and then also that I have drawn comb for brood comb for them to expand on. So then, as far as um, the I haven't been in them since then.
Well, you should get about half of May and all of June flow because there's bees that are coming out next week or two.
Right.
By the second or third
There
week
is
of
some of
May,
my
they should
hives,
be
yeah,
foragers.
some of my hives, um, I have some supers on them. Some of the ones that the survivors,
Yeah.
and I'm hoping that queen will kick in. And of course, it's going to be a while for those, the bees the population to kick in. But I think that um, trying to look at my background. There it is.
Yeah,
Uh,
I need to update mine. Mine's 2 months old. So I have to put
yeah.
every first week of every month, I take a picture of my yard similar to when I got here. So
Mhm.
I'll update it next week. Yeah, that was a good video of your mill. You and showing Bob and his
And
wife.
there's what the hives look like. The hives off the left here all have supers on them. They're demaried. The hives down at the other end have supers on them and are demaried.
Okay.
Let me see if I can move out of the way here.
There you go. And those are
And
your
then,
newts.
and then the hives behind me there. Let me see if I can go up to full video. There we go. You can
Yeah.
see that these are nuke hives. And what I did was that these are the medium size where I'm running mediums. And what I did was I transferred there's the pro nukes in the back, and I transferred the 5 frames into a deep medium. I mean, a deep nuke. And then I put 2 5-frame medium boxes on top. So the bees will go up, transfer themselves from the deep frames into the medium boxes, and of course the queen will go up in there too. And once they kind of get established, then I'll start transferring them into 10-frame equipment, and I will take and put them in 10-frame, and then do away with the nukes and stuff like that. And then there's some of them here are just in 10-frame medium that are requeened. And then let me see if I can get over here. Here I got these 2 hives here at the end. That white hive right there. That was a mean hive. I'm really glad to get rid of that queen. And then the next one here, the yellow hive, it had bees and everything in it, but the queen was failing, and they knew it. And I went ahead and, like I say, established a new queen in there. All new queens in these 3 hives for sure. And then the purple hive, of course, is nuke box that I established where it'll be in medium. And then let me run back over here. You can see the little yellow hive. It's in 10 frame. That's one of the 10 frames where I had just dropped the whole nuke right in there, ready to go,
Right.
and all that stuff. So anyway, that's what's I've been doing. It just about killed me. I actually had 3 queen because of the ones that requeen themselves. I actually had like 3 queens left over. Then I got to thinking, well, wait a minute, there's a nuke that I hadn't sold yet, which I need that one of those queens. And then I had these other 2 queens, and I'm like, I'm just going to drop them in nuke boxes and keep them as quote spares.
Right.
If something happens here in the next several months, I got a queen, just, I know it's a new queen, and drop it right into the situation and keep on going.
Well, that's what I do with those queens from those swarms. They're my backup queens. And then they will turn into my resource hives later on. And if I catch I got one more hive out of my 25. I need to add some more bees to it so I can start putting supers on it. Just doesn't have the population. It's a new queen. The queen failed and they started superseding it. I took the cells and I put a queen in there, a new queen that I grafted earlier in the year.
Mm-hmm.
So she's just starting to lay. I checked it today and she had about one whole frame laid up, but nothing capped yet. So they just need population. So my
Right.
next swarm's going in there, except for the queen. That'll
Yeah.
probably be tomorrow. And I had a customer that bought 2 nukes and he missed the pickup a couple weeks ago. And I texted him, I emailed him, didn't hear a word. And I actually emailed him saying, hey, I'm selling your 2 nukes because I got other customers. Well, he called me today and says, you got my nukes? I said, nope. They're gone. Because I'm going to make 2 more nukes up um, soon. I told him I need a couple weeks. I got 4 more queens that are just now emerging out of their cells. It should be next day or 2. So I told him in 2 weeks I should have some nukes, a couple of nukes. But they were going to be my resource hives. So I'm a little behind on my resource hives.
Hmm. Hey, Frank, sorry to hear about that. He's out in Nebraska and got 57 tornadoes. They got hit pretty hard out
Yeah.
there. Hopefully, you didn't get too bad yourself.
Yeah, that front that's coming through here, they said by the time it gets to my area, it's going to fall apart a lot,
Well,
just be rain. So it won't be anything by the time it gets to you, Charlie. But it
yeah,
looked like the Midwest, it's hammering them.
no, I hadn't watched the news lately, but so anyway, I'm kind of breathing a sigh of relief. I got my queens in. I got my nukes that came in. My hive areas back up in its numbers. Hopefully, things will go in a positive way. And
Right.
the only good thing is, I'm hoping that with the new queens, that I'll see a major difference in production. As far as brood production, I'm not gonna, see a huge um
Honey.
what would you say, honey crop this year.
Right.
And then Bill
Yeah,
down there in
hopefully,
Shannon, they're booming down that way.
hopefully not too many queens get superseded because that happens sometimes, even on nukes, that happens.
Mhm.
So
So,
hopefully you got your couple backups.
yeah. um, Tom and Melissa, if you've got time and you're near a microphone or a video, how about jumping on? I want to talk to you about 8-frame equipment. I've got some questions for myself. I've been helping out a neighbor for the last year for the first time, and then this year, and he happened to he bought a guy out that happened to have 8-frame equipment, and I'm really finding out is even though it's only 2 less frames in a box, there's a huge difference when it comes to management and everything.
Yes. You got to manage some more. I got 3 of them, Charlie.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
finding out. I'm trying to educate this new beekeeper. I said, look, I says, I'm used to doing it one way and I'm learning as we kind of go. And I'm like, I said, these things you need to be on top of these things on a weekly basis.
Yeah,
And
the brood fills up a lot faster. I
well,
mean, all of
there's
a
one thing
sudden,
I have noticed in 8-frame equipment is that when it comes to bee space in the cavity, it seems to be pretty much the exact right space where, let's say, if you put honey supers on, they'll build all the wax out. It's a good flow, and they'll fill all the frames from wall to wall. There isn't this thing like 10 framers, you have to bring the frames in or anything like that. They automatically
right.
do that. They seem to have the right space combination there. And that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
Um,
you'll find out that if you got a pretty good queen, she'll fill up 7 frames of all brood, and there's no honey. And if you don't have supers on them quick, they're swarm on you.
well, see, that's my question. And then I see Sarah has 8-frame. All these 8-framers are in here tonight. Come on in.
Well,
Uh,
that one, remember I talked about that one that had 10 frames of brood at the end of March? That was 8-frame equipment.
Now,
So,
Russell says here, let me see if I can bring it up here. Feels that an 8-frame, a deep and a medium is almost the same as one single deep 10-frame frame. Well, that's my question. Is the fact that this young guy last year, the best I can remember, his best hive that he had, he was, he didn't have any wax, so he's drawing wax out and he's honey supers, and I would be over there pretty much on a weekly basis, and all that. So I found that we were putting, I would tell him, I said, see, the wax is being drawn out and they're filling it up with nectar. I said, we need to put another super on. Sometimes we just go ahead and put 2 supers on of just foundation. And then within a week or two, draw it out and filled. And not capped, but filled. So I think we were running 2 mediums. And I could see that swarm cell situation that they're running out of space quick. So then we went to 3 medium boxes for the brood chamber, and I was running a demery situation. 3 mediums, queen excluder, a bunch of honey supers, and a top box would be where I'm bringing out brood and putting up top. Or a lot of times he had some failing hives where we were equalizing basically and putting brood over and brood, and some, if they had queen cells and he needed a queen, we'd just drop them in over there. I said, leave that alone. And they'd have a new queen, and all that. And then, so I was over there this week looking at it. He had went through the winter with a deep and 2 mediums. And what he did was he kept a deep and a medium as the brood chamber, and then a queen excluder, and then honey supers, and then he had put that brood chamber medium up on top. But I don't know. He hasn't learned that you have to be there on time. You have to be on top of things with these hives. You can't say, well, I'll get around to it.
right.
And here comes the expert on it because she's got all
There
the
it is.
brain.
I
Well,
know.
I knew in March I had to check those 3 8-framers, and I knew I didn't have to check my 10-framers.
Hey, Shane, you got 8 frames too, but
And this,
what I
Hello.
found was what by the time I got there, the brood up in the top box had hatched out. The bees had filled it up with nectar. And I'm like, hey, your nectar, your honey frames are full. And there's this, never went to bee school, and I took a nectar frame. I wanted to put, it was a brood frame. I wanted to put it back into the brood for her to lay, and I shook it, and of course all the nectar flew out of it, and I put it out in the brood chamber area, and he's like, well, what's that? And I says, it's nectar, it's honey. I said, this is what's happening. I said, they're backfilling. He didn't quite understand that, and a little bit, um, I don't know, agitated, I'll say. But I'm thinking to myself, and you tell me better, Melissa. It's looked like to me, number one, of course, for me, it's like, okay, you need all the same size frames in order to be able to do any kind of moving.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, from what I can see of this hive in management problems, because you got to be really on top of it instead of it. Like a 10 frames, a little bit more forgiving. But I think he needs to have 2 deep boxes as the brood chamber, queen excluder, honey supers. And I said, you need another deep box up on top so you can pull these brood frames up and cycle them up and down and up and down. And then, like I say, this past week, the only thing we could do is I said, put more honey supers on with foundation. Well, he's out of drawing wax. I said, well, now's the time to draw the wax.
Exactly. Yep.
And I don't know. I mean, I know that you're running 8. You're probably running 2 double deeps.
Yeah, we run double deeps. Yeah.
Are you? And then honey above?
Yeah, double deeps, the queen excluder, and then we use medium supers. So.
And then you were saying something about you had some swarms and swarm cells or something of that nature.
Yeah, we just Tom a lot of times will cut them out and we'll incubate the swarm cells or whatnot, then make splits from that if we can find the queen. If we can't find the queen, then we'll just break it down, still make splits out of it, just so they don't do like after swarms.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as like management for 8 frame, we've never really done 10 frames, so I really can't compare. But well, I mean, we've had a few 10 frames, but not consistently, all I can say is when they start getting honey bound like that,
Mm-hmm.
we just pull those honey frames, freeze them, and then store them to give back to colonies in the fall that might be light, or we'll use them when we make splits, for a food frame for splits
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And then that's a good way to get, more drawn comb also, because then you take that honey frame out and you throw a piece of frame with plastic foundation or whatever, wax, whatever you're using in there, and they, draw something new out for you. So that's kind of what we do. And when we add supers, we tend, as long as the colony is a strong colony, we'll put on 2 at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So that way they have plenty of room to store that nectar, so they're not backfilling the brood nest.
Yeah, because that's what I kind of noticed is 8 frame honey supers, they can pack at in no time flat if it's a good flow.
Yeah. They'll start backfilling it pretty quick. I think so with the 8 frame, because they don't have as much space, obviously. So yeah, we just start pulling honey frames. Like I pulled probably 3 or 4 honey frames out of one hive just the other day, and we just use those. Out of the brood chamber, and then we just use those for the ongoing splits that we keep making. And then just put empty foundation in there. If we had some drawn foundation, we'd throw that in there too, so that she could continue to lay, because some of these hives, like the queen, they were making swarm cells, but it wasn't because their populations are big, but they weren't swarm big, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But they're making swarm cells because she has no room to lay, because they started backfilling everything. So on those, we would cut the swarm cells out, pull maybe a frame or two of bees to make a split. If we could find the queen, we'd pull her. Otherwise, we'd leave a cell in there with that, and then put some empty foundation in there. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, so you were talking about, you said something about him taking that brood box and putting it on top of the supers, right? So that brood can hatch out or whatnot, which that's a great idea. But then they're going to keep filling that brood box with honey, with nectar.
That's
and
right.
then you're going to have all those 8 frames in that deep full of nectar. And then he's either going to have to harvest that or use that for making splits or store it for fall, feedback or, whatever. So that's the only problem that I would see with putting that deep box up there. I mean, you can always add a third deep to the brood nest.
I'm looking at, I find with 10 frame, the way I do my demery, where you have a single brood chamber management, that because of the brood chamber size, because it's only one box, the queen is putting the eggs and everything, so they have to put the honey upstairs.
Right.
Where in 8 frame, it seems to be different, where 8 frames ain't enough for her. She runs out of place to lay eggs, from what I can see of my experience. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, if she had an additional 8 frames, she'll have enough. I'm looking at the space for her to lay.
Yeah. If you think about it, they're backfilling it with nectar, right? So that means that maybe the supers didn't get on as soon as they should have got put on. That would be the only reason for them to be backfilling, because they didn't have anywhere to store their nectar. So with 8 frame, maybe the supers need to go on just a little bit earlier than what they need to go on a 10 frame.
That's the thing. I mean, on my stuff, when I'm setting up for a single brood chamber management, you put the supers on like in late March. You're about usually a week or 2 ahead of what most normal people do.
Right.
And in normal circumstances and stuff. And that's what I'm saying about the management, about the size of the cavity, is that you got to be, it sounds like to me, you've got to be a couple weeks ahead of everybody else because of the size of the box.
And probably so. I would agree with that. Maybe not as soon as like you would with a single box management, but maybe like a week later. It's kind of in between, right?
Yeah.
It's 16 frames versus 10 and 20 frames. It's kind of right there in the middle.
Right.
So that would make sense.
In fact, with 10 frames, one of the things I do all the time is if I see 6 or 7 frames of brood, I take that outside frame that's honey and I stick it right in the middle of them. And it forces them to take all that honey and push it out.
Yeah.
Because it's in between all the brood frames.
Right.
And plus, then it gives a space for the queen to lay.
Right.
Where in 8 frames, you don't have that extra honey frame on the end.
Yeah, they've got it all filled out. Yeah.
Yeah, so you don't have that opportunity to play that management game.
So you mean you're talking about in the brood chambers, she's got everything laid up? Then you say, Melissa?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
I say in the 8 frame brood chamber, she's got everything laid up
everywhere she can. Yeah. Yeah.
Everywhere. They don't have a place to put the honey except for upstairs.
Exactly. Yeah. There's no, I guess you could push the brood out, a little bit further, but
they talk about the number game and I've sat down and I've done the math and I've counted the cells, and you got X amount of cells in a 10 frame box, and she's going to lay so many eggs per day. And you're going to have, let's say 10 or 15 or 20% of the area for pollen and nectar. And it's like, the math calculates right, but the bees don't seem to be reading the math book.
Yeah.
And I tried that thing where, and then if you listen to like like the way Ian and all them guys, they, their area's different, but they pull a split off of that,
Right.
and then they put the honey supers back on, and they go to town on it. And I tried it where I didn't really pull a split, but the queen started making queen cells last year, and I said, well, this is not going to work. So what has always worked for me in the last several years is, like I say, pulling the brood out of the bottom, putting empty frames in, giving her a place to lay, and it forces them to put the honey upstairs. I bring that brood chamber up top on the stack, but I make sure I don't wait till it's completely empty. I wait till about it's 85% emerged, and then put it back downstairs. And there might be some nectar in there, but not much. And if it's only, let's say, 3 brood frames upstairs, or maybe 4, I'll fill the rest of the box out with foundation. And that last hive in the end down there, it's got the yellow. I put 4 or 5 frames of foundation up there. It's all drawed out, and it's starting to be filled with honey.
Right.
It's a great way to draw wax. It gives you different options that way. And then, of course, getting the brood out. And I had pulled the frames out because they were about 80% uncapped, or emerged and everything. But now right now, everything is hinged on the fact that I pulled the queens. I put new queens in. Hopefully everybody's going to be accepted. I'll probably get out there maybe Sunday, kind of poke around and see whether they've been, released. It's been about, it'll be almost 5 days. They should be released by that time. And if so, pull the cages. And my concern is because the queens were diminishing in their egg production. In turn, the bees were backfilling the brood chamber because the holes were open.
Right.
And that's because of her not producing enough egg population. And
now, is that after you'd had supers on already?
Oh yeah.
Okay. And they were still backfilling in the brood chamber?
Yeah, they'll backfill where they're at before they'll put anything up top. And so my concern is okay, I got to go in there and see whether she's starting to lay, and maybe start pulling brood frames that are filled with nectar out and putting empties in, and maybe adding a little bit every week, or so many of them a week, so she has enough time to lay them up so they can't backfill, and kind of manually clear that nest of honey. And then actually put those frames up in a honey frame and let them cap them, and then then I'll have to deal with uncapping them. I always find brood frames are a little bit harder to uncap.
Well, you can just not uncap them and save them for fall. For instead
do
of
that too. Yeah, that's true.
having to feed them, just give them back to the bees in the fall
and all that. So, but so I guess I'll just have to experiment with these 8 frames and kind of get a better understanding. But all that. Where's Tom at tonight? Working?
No, he's just chilling. So it's been rainy here all day, and just dreary and rainy, and we had to move 7 nucs from our house to one of our other yards because they're just getting too strong. They need to be moved out. So since it was raining, we're like, let's do that today, screen them up, move them out to this other yard. We get out to this other yard, and I've already said the other day, I'm done making splits. I'm tired of splits. I'm done. We get out there was 4 swarms in the trees. So we had 0 equipment with us, and there's like it's where our other yard is, like it's in the middle of nowhere kind of, but there's this little diner down the road that we were going to go eat lunch at. So we go up to the diner and grab some cardboard boxes that they had thrown out, and get these cardboard boxes and go back up to our yard where the bees are, and get these Luckily, they weren't so high up that he needed he should have had a ladder. The one cedar tree he climbed up in like a monkey and, trimmed branches and whatnot and got it out. So now we've got 4 more splits. But, whatever. It is what it is. They just keep coming. So he's done for the day. He's like, I just want to rest. I just want to sleep. So
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like after Tuesday, I'm putting in queens and going through every frame, killing the queen cells and stuff that they made or started. And doing that, it was basically by the time I'd get everything done, it was 7:00 at night, and I was whipped. And I'm like, and it's been pretty days since then. I mean, it's been really, I'll say, in the 50s in the morning, but then getting up into the 70s during by midday. I actually went up to the barn there today and just kind of sighted down across the line, and you could see a huge amount of activity on all the hives. And
Yeah.
it's like, you know what? I mean, I know the queen, the queen cages are in there and all that stuff. And I'm like, I ain't even gonna even think about looking into you until maybe Sunday, maybe not even then. I'm not sure, but and it's supposed to be in the 80s beginning of next week and stuff. It's just like it's going from fall to summer, full blast.
Well, it's so annoying because all of these hives keep swarming on us. We've made significant splits on all of these colonies. So there's no reason why they should be swarming on us. Like, we've cut queen cells out. We've, taken the queens out of some of them and just made at least 1 or 2 splits in most of these hives. And we're still finding, we're assuming they're RBs because they're in cedar trees right behind our hives.
Right.
But it's crazy. This will be, in our other yard, I think there was 3, one of the other yards, I think he got 3 swarms out of that this week. And then 4, one of them might be a swarm that just got separated by branches because they weren't too far apart and they were really small, but it was raining, so we couldn't go through them. So today it was either 3 or 4 swarms, but it's just my goodness.
All right, Barry, can
Every-
you know what kind of queens I use? And that's carniolans.
There's actually a guy that works midnights on
You need to,
I think
is there a background JW?
Hey, say what?
I don't know. You got a television or something running, or what is it?
There's voices in the background.
On me?
Yep.
Yeah, well, he's fixing that.
So Brian says there's no more room at the end. Yeah, we're
Yeah. We lose it.
okay. My
Can you
bad.
hear me now?
You're good now, I think.
Yeah.
So what you want?
Third week of June, I graft big time, and I replace every fall. I replace all my queens on my production hive. That way, next spring I don't have swarms because I don't. I'm not young anymore. I don't want to be hunting them down as much.
This is the first year that we've ever had this. We have never had swarms like this before. This is the first year. I don't know what it is. I don't know if just because the nectar flow has come in so early, if it was the weather was so warm and they just built up so fast or what it was, but we've never had swarms like this before. But I was getting ready to say, Brian said there's no more room at the inn. We're completely out of wooden nuke boxes. I think we had 50 of them and we're out. Now we've started using the plastic pro nuke boxes that we have. That it's this is getting ridiculous. I'm just
Yeah, I'm running out of frames. I bought 400 frames.
yeah.
It's I don't know.
Yeah, we're pretty close to being out of frames too. I think we've got maybe 4 deep boxes of frame. I'm not sure. More than that? I don't know. But we're getting close to being out of just empty foundation. Well, not empty, but undrawn frames anyway. So
One
we'll have
thing,
to order
one,
those.
one thing I've noticed, Melissa, is that at least in my area, there was a really good pollen flow this early spring from the
Mhm.
maple trees. And I noticed a lot of my boxes had 2 or 3 frames of pollen.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, already. And the tulip poplars have it. And I've been pulling them, pulling one of them because they already got it around their brood. They don't need more extra,
Yeah.
that much extra. So I've been putting them in the splits or the swarms I've been catching. So some of those 2 framers got now pollen too.
Well, I think what I noticed is in your like JW and all three of you in your area is that when we were having rain and cold weather and terrible weather, you guys were in the 60s and
Yeah.
70s,
Yeah,
and you
we
had
were.
like this dome of hot air right in the middle of the country.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right.
We maybe only had like what 2, maybe 3 cold snaps this spring, early spring, and it's just, and even winter was fairly mild. It's just the bees have just grown like crazy this year. So I think that that's why they've just been swarming so much because, like I said, we've never had swarms like this before, and it's been insane.
Yeah. I like to put my supers on 2 weeks before the flow, just so they get used to going through the queen excluder and
Mhm.
also to clean them all up.
Yeah. Yeah, and we had thought
Use
about
that.
doing that, but that was like one of those weeks that it was like the cold snap that it was like, and we're like, because we didn't know if that cold was gonna freeze the any of the blooms and kind of set it back again. So that's why we kind of
Right.
held off on putting our supers on, when we should have just probably gone ahead and put them on then.
I put them on. Bees don't die from cold weather.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll have to probably order a pallet of frames here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. A couple hundred more.
So I know you bought that automatic uncapper and all. Do you have a honey house that you have all that put in?
Who, us?
Yeah, you.
Yeah, it's called my garage. So when we extract honey, usually earlier that week we'll go and harvest all the supers, right? And we'll store them all in. Well, let me pause. First, that weekend before, we'll take everything out of the garage, clean it and sanitize it, and then only put back in the garage what needs to be in the garage, along with the extraction equipment and whatnot. And then we'll go pull all the supers, store them in the garage, usually on Wednesday, just because then we'll work on Wednesday and Thursday, because then we'll work on extracting Thursday, Friday, Saturday, over the weekend or whatnot. So we do it all in the garage.
Mhm.
Hey, guys, I'm going to jump off. I got to get cleaned up. I didn't, from being out in the yard the whole day. And plus, tomorrow is a learning yard day that I'm given for my area. So I
Good
got to
luck
be
with
ready.
Hopefully you don't get rained on. I mean, it's like pouring outside. So if we lose internet, it's probably because something's going on with the storm. But it's supposed to rain tomorrow, like pretty much all weekend. There's chances of rain here.
We just have slight chances for a little shower here and there. So I don't think it's going to be, if it rains, it'll be like 20 minutes, a half an hour, and then be done.
Yeah.
Not going to be, I don't think it's going to be a washout. So I'll be back on probably, but I'm not going to be streaming.
Okay.
So,
All right. Well,
right.
thanks for coming on, Tom.
See ya.
Appreciate
Yeah.
So, JW, what's happening in your neck of the woods? Are you getting rained out too?
Not right at the present. It's just been showering off and on all day,
Uh,
but we haven't had anything of any consequence, any heavy rain out of it so far. So,
I think it's probably just going north of you, is
yeah,
my
looks
guess,
like it
because
is.
it is pouring here right now.
It angles across St. Louis and just follows 70 across, which it's been angling up, coming across about 40, 50 miles north of me up here. So.
Mm-hmm.
No, I've been in the same boat as everybody else. I've been doing the splits and just getting things. I'm actually caught up, believe it or not. For the first time, I've got 5 more hives tomorrow to put either second or third supers on, but I've got everything supered and the queen excluders in, and I'm ready to rock and roll. But you know what happens when you say that, don't you?
Then you go find a swarm in the tree when you go out to your yard, because that's where we are right now. We're like, oh, good, we're done. We've got all of our supers on. We can breathe a minute, and then time goes to cut the grass. Like, oh wait, there's a swarm. There's another one.
You know, thank goodness I've only had one swarm out, and that's been 2 weeks ago out of my main apiary. Now I've got a Minty, a young lady that I've been helping, and she's got, well, she started with 10 hive, and she's had 13 swarms. You know, 3 of them's after swarms. Out of those 10, every hive she's had swarmed this year. I don't know what the deal is.
It's crazy. I think it's the warm weather. They just all built up so fast. You know,
I started tearing mine apart and breaking them down early. So I think that's got something to do with mine having not swarmed. And I may eat crow. I may have 5 swarms in the morning when I get there, but so far I've only had the 1 swarm.
yeah, I'm telling you, we've made splits on these hives and they're still swarming on us. It just doesn't make any sense. They're just we've just decided they're going to do what they're going to do this year. Like they don't want to follow our nice approach that we're trying to set them in one direction. Like, no.
I've got a question. I was hoping we had a few more people or response on anyone got any experience using queen mandibular pheromone artificial to keep.
You mean those little strips?
Yep.
I've used them in the past.
Yeah. Do they work? I've never used them, Charlie. Do they work?
Yeah, they work. Yeah. I mean, I used them in a hive where it was queenless and I didn't want it to go laying worker.
Yeah, that's what I was.
And that kind of a thing. I've heard some people use them for a bait box because they smell like a queen in there.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that. One thing, I got them from Man Lake, and they look about the size of a spaghetti noodle, and I think they're about, I don't know, maybe 4 inches long. And I would cut them, in smaller pieces, and staple them. You can staple them to a wooden frame or something like that.
Yeah. If anybody's got any comments on it, the reason I'm wanting some, I've got a niece that's in the flowers and so forth. She's got a really nice greenhouse, and beside the greenhouse with about 8 or 10 feet is a great big large maple tree with a crack in it. Well, guess what? Swarm moved into the maple tree, and I'm going to.
Well, that was another thing that I heard that. Doug, is that your back feet there or what?
Don't think so. Mine shut off.
Is somebody vacuuming at your house?
Sounds like a pump running to make it.
Sounds like a wash machine running or something.
Some type of machinery is going on.
Well, anyway, some people will put them on a piece of wood or something, hung them on a tree, so they attract a swarm to a low position on a tree so they can capture it. That kind of a thing.
No, I don't know. I'm just going to try some. I'm going to try to get them out of that tree for her. So I didn't know if it'd work or not. If anyone had any experience with it.
Yeah,
I haven't used it lately, but
you have any idea what kind of a life it has on it? I mean, does it have an expiration?
well, I do know once you get them, you're supposed to keep them in the freezer.
Okay.
And all that. And I had a bunch of them in the freezer. I think they got thrown away. But
I'll have to do a little research. I just wondered if anybody had any experience with using it. I was told by some old timers you could put them in a hive, to keep them from going laying workers if he was without queens for a while. So. But I was wanting to use. I was going to try to put a swarm box and try to suck some bees out of that tree with it. But I don't know if it'll work or not.
Try it.
I've been trying to use swarm rustlers so far, but it hasn't worked yet. So.
How long have they
Well-
been in the tree?
Well, I don't know for sure. She just noticed it a couple or 3 days ago. You know, they swarmed on the side there. They scouted on that tree last year, and I went over and checked it. She says, "I've got a swarm over here." Well, they wasn't swarming; they were just scout bees, and they decided last year they didn't like it, and they moved on. And this year they moved in. So,
Well, I was just wondering if they had just moved in. You know, if they haven't started really building a ton of comb yet. If you could spray some Bigo or something like that in there and get them to, you know, evacuate the area.
yeah, well, I've got some of that too. You know, but it's a great big, and I'm sure it's deep, and it's a real narrow slit that they're going in and out of it, but the slit's about 5 or 6 feet long. You know, up and down horizontally or vertically.
Yeah.
We get a lot of bees in the hot room, and I was wondering if a person used that queen pheromone in a box in the hot room, if it would suck some of those bees in there. Might try that this year and just see.
So what you been doing, Doug? Is it snow finally gone away?
Oh yeah, we've had summer here this week.
Oh yeah.
Oh, just picking up feed pails, trapping skunks, checked a few hives.
So what is it, about 10 degrees up there, or is it more like
We were
22 degrees?
we've been 22, 23 degrees all week.
77, 70, 73.
Yeah.
Did
But
you
we're-
use JW's skunk trapping suggestions that he gave Tom a couple weeks ago?
Well, I don't know. I've got 8 so far, so we'll get 25, 30 in a year probably.
Skunks?
Holy cow. That's a lot of skunks.
It's too many.
That's way too many.
Once you
How do you kill them without getting sprayed?
Don't
Well-
stand at the business end.
A lot of them will use a conibear trap on them,
I got some of them.
and it's usually if you catch them pretty good, they don't spray. You can get them out of the trap without any
Yeah.
sting. But we use some live traps too, and they're a plastic box, and a door slides down. The back end of the box has a little round hole. And the first year we had those, that's several years ago now. When you get a skunk in them, they don't want to leave. So I'm a beekeeper. I thought, well, that little hole in the back, I got a smoker. I'll just puff some smoke in there and drive him out. Well, he should have died of lung cancer, and he still wouldn't come out. So you have to give kind of a tossing motion with it, and they go flying through the air and land on the ground. And by the time they come to senses, you're out of range, so it's okay.
Right.
So up at the top, Frank's Bees asked if anybody had used Eco Wood before. We have not. We had we know somebody who's used it, but this is his first year using it, so I don't know how well it works.
I like it. I don't use it solely. What I do is use the Eco Wood, and then I torch it after the Eco
No,
Wood.
I think Bob used it and he didn't have much luck with it.
It turns I've got some boxes that's it's been on there for like, I think it's 3rd year for me, maybe 4th, and they're all, they're about the color of that couch cover behind you. Yeah, they're real dark. They've turned them pine boxes. I don't know. Let's see. I don't know. I'm close enough. I've got some. See some of the darker ones here on the stands. Them darker ones. Them's been Eco Wood. The rest they've all been.
Over on the left there, JW.
It'd be to be my either right to my screen or can you see my arrow? Would it show up on the screen?
No.
That the
No.
darker one,
Oh, it's
the
when you're
darker
talking
single.
darker ones. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This is an old picture, but they're a lot darker than that now. Some of them just almost solid brown, but they seem to be holding well, so.
Mike says he done it, lasted 3 years. He said no to eco.
Yeah, so that's all I know. I haven't, but I also, torched, they've been torched and dipped after the eco. So
So
all I can tell is it's just making them darker.
yeah, the guy who we know who used eco wood on his, he actually brought them to our little EMBA wax dipping thing and had us dip them also. So his are eco wood treated and then dipped at the same time. So it should last a while. It was double treated.
Well, mine seemed to be doing well, but that's what I did. I ecoed them, and then I torched them, and then I wax dipped.
Mm-hmm. So, Doug, don't you just pretty much do wax dip, don't you?
Well, a lot of our honey supers are painted, but anything that stays out year round is wax dipped. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, what's your protocol on the wax dipping, Doug? Do you guys do it yourself there? Do you, what temperature and how long,
We don't do it ourselves. The company that builds or makes our supers and stuff, they do the wax dip
for you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Same place that Brad takes his to and stuff.
I happened to turn, they were advertising for this outfit selling it now. They're up in your country. I can't think the name now, but Cayman Reynolds is kind of putting out, said 300 degrees for 3 minutes. That seems awfully fast to me. I do mine at 240 for about like 20 minutes.
We did about 300 degrees for 10 minutes is what we did.
You do 300 for 10?
Yeah, just to make sure, because we were like, 3 minutes really just doesn't sound like long enough.
Yeah, it didn't to me.
I know that Brad came on here, and the place that he took his to, they have a cage and they put everything in there, and I think it dips for either 10 or 15 minutes, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what Doug's talking about there, the same place, Brad.
Yeah,
get theirs also.
Lewis and Sons do it here.
And it, I mean, do you see a difference as far as, I guess what's, with a wax wood, does it have a different appearance to it as far as like a waxy sheen to it on the outside?
It really doesn't.
No.
It penetrates,
Yeah. You can't feel the wax on the outside unless you do like that. So the guy at
James,
Navi, he was saying do it for whatever temperature it was for 3 minutes and then dip it again for, I don't know, just a quick dip or whatever. And that second dip though just puts an extra coat of wax on the outside, which, when it gets hot in the summer, that's probably going to melt off. It's kind of useless, in my opinion. But when you do that initial dip, all that gets sucked into the wood. Like just like touching the box, you wouldn't know that it's wax dipped necessarily.
Unless they weather and get quite gray in time.
Yeah.
I got some migratories that I double dipped, and when it gets real hot now, and that's like 3 years ago, I think is when I did all those.
Mm-hmm.
The migratory lids, they'll get greasy on top, when the sun gets them nice and warm. Other than that, as far as the boxes and stuff, I don't notice any greasiness to them at all.
I did 50 supers year before last with EcoWood. Dipped them, on YouTube they show taking a tote and dipping them in there, and thought they were doing pretty good at first, but then as they dry out, you'll notice that they will still at the frame rest, your boxes and all will start to bow at the top and at the bottom, enough to where it'll actually pull nails and staples right out. of the ones that I had. And I will preface that with I didn't build my boxes. I bought them pre-assembled, and they did not glue them. Of course, you don't know that till after you dip them all, right? And then you start having issues. So the second year I went ahead and painted most of them. I still have some that are eco wood, but most of them have been painted right now. But I've been doing 400 frames. The wax moths decided they loved them, so they just shredded all my honey supers. So some of the comb I'm able to, maybe 2 or 3 frames out of a box, but the rest of them have to all be re-waxed and everything. So, it's great to find that out the week that you're supposed to be putting supers on. so I've been cleaning them, letting them dry, re-waxing them, and pretty much as soon as I've got them re-waxed, they're going straight onto the colony. So we'll see how
In
it
our
goes.
area, they call that operator error, Bob.
I would 100% agree with that statement.
I'm guilty of it at times also. So
It's crazy. I've got some colonies doing real well. I had that swarm that I caught the other night at like 10 something at night, 11 o'clock at night. I just clipped the branch, I put it in a pro nuke, closed them up. They had one drawn comb and one nasty black plastic frame that it had wax on it, but just where it had set in the sun, it just kind of melted in there. And the next morning I just put them in a double deep right away with one comb in the bottom and one comb in the top, and the rest was foundation, and put some feed to them, and they're really starting to draw that comb out in there. So it's just that constant battle, right? Either you have comb and don't need it, or need a bunch of comb and don't have it. And so that's what we've been working with. There's
Hey.
Paul.
Hey, Paul. He's frozen.
Looks like you got some new eyewear there.
I don't know. Connection isn't right.
And kind of keeping
So,
up.
Doug, are you, putting your hives out, out and, out yards, or open them, instead of having them tight together, you brought them back out where they're.
Haven't split them up yet. We'll be doing that in the next couple of weeks. Cleaning bottom boards.
Right.
Nathan has
Or you're kind of just getting started then.
yeah. Nathan has a young neighbor boy. He wants to buy a cell phone, so he's scraping frames for us right now.
Could have sent him over to my place.
He'll be earning his cell phone.
I would have had him in muck boots out there spraying frames down. I'll tell you what. So this is the part of the year when I really like plastic frames, because the wax moths, they won't, like in between the box and the frame, they really won't build right there with plastic frames. But with wooden frames, they will put so many cocoons in there where you can't even get the frame out without a hive tool prying it off the wall. So
See, I'm not a fan of those plastic frames. They're too, when you try to set them, like, because I'll often like set a frame down like on the corner and like take off any like queen cups or anything like that, or look for cells and kind of spin around, and they like just slide right off,
yeah,
they kind of flex, even when you're looking at them and like spinning them around to kind of look at them, they kind of flex and bow sometimes. And
I was a fan of the price, because I bought several hundred of them at I think it was $1.65 a frame when I bought them. And
you can't pass that up.
Yeah, and then I bought my uncapper. Well, it doesn't like the plastic frames either. So I've pretty much, once I get those combs drawn out, my plan is to just keep them in the brood box and use wood for the honey supers. So
do you use deeps for your supers too then?
I wasn't, but that's something that I'm trying to do this year as well. Get them to build those combs up and go to all deeps. But that's going to take me a little bit to get that comb drawn out and them working them good. So
It
we'll
seems
see.
like a lot of weight to lift.
It is. It is. But I don't have to lift it as many times. So
I don't have too many of them, but does anyone beside me notice the ones that I do have and use where it makes that mold seam on the top of the top frame? Seem like the bees want to add a little burr comb to that. Did anybody notice that besides me? Over the wooden, the tops of your frames?
Oh, on those plastic frames?
Yes.
I get it everywhere.
Seam down the middle of the top of the frame on those plastic ones.
I feel like they do it on all my frames.
Burr comb on it. So
The price and no assembly with the plastic is the only benefits, and the fact that the wax moths don't chew the hell out of them. But
So
I had one that was so bad I just chucked it in the burn pile. I was like, even after I was done, it just looked like Swiss cheese, and I just chucked it. I'm like, yeah, just wasting money.
Brian asked where we get our pallet of frames from, and it's from Golden Bee. They're in Sedalia, Missouri. And how many frames? I can't tell you. I don't know. That's Tom's department, and he's passed out. So you'll have to ask him tomorrow when you call him.
you ought to be telling him he's drinking that heavy. It's on Friday night. He's already down.
No, he worked this morning, and then we were out in bees in the rain all afternoon. So he's done.
Tell that wussy to snap out of it and get up here. Boy, you talk about a wuss.
Don't tell me.
Really hit it with that frying pan.
Yeah.
Charlie's going to make that his thumbnail.
Yep.
For the video.
But yeah, so I don't know. I knocked him out. That's right. I'd had enough this week. But yeah, so I'm not sure how many come on a pallet. I can't remember right now off the top of my head.
Are you there, Paul? Can you hear us?
I'm gonna try one more time.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're right.
You're coming in now.
You're
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what I was going to do, y'all were talking about eco wood, and I was going to tell you, I'm sitting out here painting boxes right now.
Well, I noticed that if you leave them on the, sometimes I leave my boxes standing up out there. Termites love them. I mean, they will. The painted.
They usually turn this nice silver patina or whatever after being out for a while. So I've been using about 3 years, but I bought a bunch of new ones at Nobby or whatever that were already painted boxes. And then I'm painting them and stenciling them here with my stuff here. And then, so I paint the ones that are painted, I ended up stenciling. And then the eco wood boxes, I end up branding.
Where'd you get your brand from? Is it an electric brand or is it a?
It's one that I use on with a torch.
Okay.
And the reason I do that on the paint, the brand doesn't like paint.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you end up burning paint rather than branded box.
We've been wanting to get a brand, but Tom wants an electric one, and they're just so expensive.
Yeah, I think I saw your all's via honeybees or whatever stencil that you got from Scores and Boars or whatever on their website, and I bought this one from them last year at the Nobby. So that's what I've been doing in stenciling my boxes there.
I think we were like one of the first beekeepers to get a stencil from them. That's why our thing is on his website. But yeah, they're awesome. We've got
painted boxes stencil better, but the wood boxes, even with eco. Now the ones on the bottom here, I don't know if you can see that because it's dark out here in the driveway. This is one of my first ones, and it's actually wax coated or whatever. but
Mhm.
it doesn't. It's still doing okay. But those Eco Wood boxes, I think, are doing all right too, for the time being. Now, 10 years down the road, I may have a different story for you. I don't know.
How long you had the Eco Wood ones, Tom or Paul?
The 3 years, 2 years, and 1 year. So I've been putting it on the last 3 years at 3 different times, I guess.
That's about what I do, but like I said, I also dip mine also. But mine's about the color of his darker brown one. They're all my ones that's Eco Wood, the older ones.
So I typically use, like I said, the Eco Woods for the brood box, and then for the honey supers, I'll use the.
Oh, you cut out. That may be an internet connection problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
We lost you there, Paul, if you can hear us. Or
So
I did anyway. I guess everybody did.
the worst hive that we've had that as far as like coatings was we bought like 2 Hoover Hive setups just because we wanted to try them out. That
There you
was
go.
absolute junk. Like those lasted, I mean, the boxes were still okay, but the finish, I mean, they were horrible after 1 season. It was ridiculous.
That's
Like our
the thing.
painted stuff looked so much better than
I
those
got
Hoover
one.
Hives.
B Castle sent me one last year, and Vivor sent me one last year. And both of those look like they've been out there for about 10 years.
Yeah,
already.
exactly.
One season.
I think something unpainted with no treatment would have been better than those Hoover hives.
Pretty rough, but they look pretty bad.
Yeah, so one of the things I'm doing too, what I'm doing right now too, is I'm actually using the Eco Wood on the inside of the painted boxes and around the rims in order to treat that. So I hope it keep it from rotting out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I'm doing tonight, tomorrow, building hive stands. So it's going to be a good weekend. I'm going to be like Tom tomorrow. I'm going to be on the couch resting.
Best.
So how many hives you sound like to me are expanding?
I'm trying to get my first remote yard somewhere. So I've got like 15 colonies, but about I would say 6 hives that'll probably produce this year. But then I've got probably another 9 colonies or so that I'm going to expand somewhere else. Then I'm going to be like Brian Coper and just say, hey, that's it. You know.
I find it's our covers that weather up here, and you get humidity underneath them. With the cold air, warm bees underneath, you'll get moisture on the covers, and they'll take a beating where the hives don't.
So what you're saying, do you see that rot in the wintertime after you get that condensation on the lids?
Yeah, our covers will rot from the inside out.
Okay.
Are you talking about? Are you using all telescoping, Goria telescoping covers covered with metal or?
No metal at all on them.
Just wood.
Yeah, just wood.
You're using migratory, right? Aren't you, Doug?
Yeah.
Well, down here it can get to be, we had some 100-degree days last year. So I use screen bottom boards, and I just built. I guess I'll show you that too. Here, I guess here's a nuke version of my new screen bottom boards. And then I got let's see, 10 more for the expansion of the 10 framers.
Where are they at?
He missed them. He showed them.
Oh.
Let's see.
So those are all covered with Eco Wood as well. But they are actually, all the rails and everything on them are pressure treated lumber too.
They look like they ought to work. Time will tell. They look good, Paul.
They're heavy duty. Let me tell you, they could knock around a little bit.
No.
So now I've got a bunch of 2x6s, 2x8s to start building my stands with tomorrow, and be able to put those new hive stands in a new yard somewhere. And next year I may be up there with Charlie on how many pounds of honey I get to sell out of my little storefront, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully. What do you find? I mean, I don't know. I sit here and I'm thinking, you're all talking about boxes and rotting and all this stuff. And, I've got one box it was a medium in it. And I've noticed that it was pine and because of the way the lumber was to begin with, maybe a soft spot in the wood. And that's where that one rotted out. And now it's got the rest of my hives, I don't know. Of course I paint them, but they don't seem to rot. They just keep on going. It's been 10 years or more and everything.
I've got supers that we made out of fir plywood, Charlie. They must be 35 years old. They were painted and still going.
Yeah. You're talking about like Melissa said there was about that outer coating of wax and stuff. I forget somebody was talking about eco wood and talking about dipping with wax, and he found that the wax would get hot and the boxes would slide, and stuff like that. And I don't know whether that's true or not, whether if you have that outer coating or whatever. But
well, the people that supposedly know say those like those Hoover hives and stuff that's supposed to be, those are just wax coated. They're not coated.
Right.
Right. When
And
it gets hot, then the wax gets soft.
And I can tell you when it gets hot down here last year, then that wax came to the surface, unlike it does with the wax dip boxes. But that you get that hot wax on the surface of the boxes. It got warm enough here last year to where I actually had combs sliding off of plastic foundations inside of the hives.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
it actually wax on the comb actually melted off.
Yep, piled up in the bottom on the bottom board.
Man, that's some heat.
So that's actually one reason why we moved away from wax foundations, is because in the summer when it was so darn hot outside in the brood box, in the summer when it was so hot outside, we'd be doing hive inspections and like holding the frame, and the wax would just collapse off of the wires. Yeah. It's like, it happened a few times. This is ridiculous. We're going to phase all this wax foundation out. So we've been kind of doing that over the last couple of years.
Yeah. I quit the wax
out
5 or 6 years ago for that reason. I don't have any. I got rid of all of mine.
Like, it would be fine in the hive, but like when you take it out to do inspections, it was just falling out.
Has any of you started any of that simple comb this year for the cut comb honey? The little plastic or the little plastic.
We had talked about getting some when we were down in Slidell for the Be Alive conference last year, but I think it had like just come out not too long before then. And we didn't get any, but Melanie and Dennis Cruz did. And I think they might have it in their hives now. I'm not positive, but I've heard that they're kind of a pain to get into the frames and get it to just getting it in the frames to get it set up to put it in your hive has been kind of a pain for people.
I was just wondering if it's hard getting in, then getting it out when it's full of honey.
Yeah, I don't know.
Capped wax might be kind of difficult. You flex it, the whole thing pops out or something.
Yeah.
Think of it. I don't know. I was thinking about getting some since I'm having to spray all these down.
Bob, I don't think you can take it out of those simple combs. I thought that they're already the little clamshells, and all you do is flip them over, seal them up, and sell them that way.
Right.
Yeah, but there's one on each side, right? They're back to back, and you got to pop them apart, right, and then close them.
Yeah, but I think the lid's already there, and you just flip the lid over and close it up, and
I'm
they
not
come
sure
apart.
exactly. I'd have to look at the video again. But I actually just Wednesday night did starter strips for all of our cut comb frames. So that's ready to go. Hopefully I'll get that on Hives here.
I'm just hoping they're able to draw out a bunch of wax. Our privet hasn't popped open yet here. My privet trees that they really go crazy after. And some of my colonies are stacking away everything else, but once that privet pops is when they'll start drawing all the comb and everything out. So trying to get it ready, but might be just a bad year. Like every other year that I had in beekeeping.
Why should this year be any different, right?
Bad honey.
Bob, Melanie just commented. She said, we did simple comb and the bees haven't done anything with it yet. And they've already been through one nectar flow, right, Melanie? You said the other day?
Oops, sorry about that. My phone just went off. So last week at this time, I was threatening to go see Charlie on Saturday, and then went and saw Charlie on Saturday. So that was a nice little weekend trip.
That was a good video.
Yeah, I had a good time hanging out with Charlie and going to Gettysburg. And
Charlie don't make toothpicks, that's for sure.
No.
Did you see any of your ancestors there at Gettysburg, Bob?
Sir?
Did you see any of your ancestors there at Gettysburg?
Well, they would all have been passed away, but I saw my last name on some of the Pennsylvania and Northern Virginia monuments. So snap some photos of that. But you got to kind of assume that if your last name's in there during that time, probably fair to say it's somewhere in your family tree. They're in there. And my family, my dad's side of the family came from West Virginia, so they were right up there, you know, in Ohio. So
Would they be Yanks or Rebs? You know that, or?
Well, they would be Yankees.
Okay.
I'm actually a Yankee down in the South right now, so put it that way.
Okay.
Have any of you guys got wood ticks out in the country now?
Oh my God, yes.
Hey,
I've already pulled probably 5 of them off me this year.
they just about pick me up and carry me out of a couple of yards.
Yeah, they're everywhere down here also. You don't have the market cornered, I can assure you.
I didn't think they'd be out, already this year. And then we come home and Tom's like, you need to check yourself for ticks. I just pulled one off me. So now we got to spray for ticks every time we go out in the certain bee yards.
Excuse me, I'm getting hoarse. Worse yet is the little old deer ticks, the seed ticks. It's about the size of a pinhead, That's worse yet.
Yeah. Let's see. Matt's trying to. Oh, he's doing combed honey.
Trying one super of combed honey.
Put it on a super strong hive.
Or put one frame per in 10 different 10 different ones.
Yeah.
He's in Western New York.
Yeah.
Maybe
I guess
Carl.
this flow would be in May. It'd be whenever there's the most heavy flow there is that you got in your area there. You might want to ask some of your local guys. Hey, Larry. And all that. But that's the main thing on that. It's like a super strong hive to be able to draw the wax out. So Morgan, what's happening?
Oh, I've just been busier and all get out, and the bees have got ahead of
Turn the volume up a little bit, Morgan.
Let me see how to do that. It's a new cam. Hold on 1 second. I'll get back with you.
I
Hello.
was just having the same conversation today with Brad. Was are you ever ahead?
No.
You're never ahead, because once you finish like these combs, right? Had I done this earlier, as soon as it was done, I would have had to do something else immediately, right? So it's just always something. Trying to stay ahead.
Enjoyed our
Better?
show.
It was in 4K too. We got to see Charlie in high definition.
And I think we had that live. Was it live for what, hour and 15 minutes?
Yep.
And all
And
that.
then I filmed the Sawmill and edited that. I'm actually was editing a video of wax moth damage and cleaning it out. So hurts my heart to spray those foundations off and ruin all that comb. Hold on.
Got to see a picture of a young Charlie too.
Yeah, back when I had hair. Yeah. Actually,
we've never had wax moth issues except for like dead outs that we just left the equipment on the stand and just kind of didn't get back to it to store it fast enough. We go back to it and it's full wax moths.
I had some comb in a building, and around July, August, when it's hot and humid. That's the only time I had any problems.
Yeah, the only other time we had wax moths was our very first year beekeeping, or maybe it was our second year. And we still only had like 8 hives in our backyard or whatever. And so we just kept, you just don't know everything, right? So we just kind of kept our frames in the basement on like a wire rack shelf. And it's December and we're in our bedroom, like, why are there moths in the house? Like, it's December. There shouldn't be any moths anywhere. And for like a week, couldn't figure it out. And then we were downstairs kind of cleaning up because we were getting ready to have a party of some sort. And so I go to like move this wire shelf rack and pulling these frames off, and lo and behold, there's all the wax moths. And that's exactly where our moths in our house were coming from. This whole shelf downstairs of frames. So after that, we quit storing frames in our basement and started treating with that Certain or
Sertane,
yeah, BT.
Does that work pretty good? Does it?
Yeah, we've not had any problems with it. As soon as we take our supers off, we put those out in the yard for the bees to clean out, and then later on that week or whenever, I'll treat all of those with Certain.
And how are you spraying it on, or what are you doing?
So yeah, I have like a half-gallon sprayer from Harbor Freight's pump sprayer thing. So I mix like a half-gallon at a time and just spray the frames each side, put them back in the supers. We leave them set out for like a day to dry, and then we store them in the shipping container. So all of our equipment is stored in a 20-foot, I guess, shipping container at Tom's shop.
Sea container.
Yeah.
Is that any better on my mic?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're sounding good now.
Okay.
Doesn't your wax melt in the shipping container?
Nope, we've not had any issue with it at all.
As we were looking at that, but when you step inside it in the summertime, it's probably well over 100 degrees, and I thought that would take the wax off.
Yeah, no, we've not had any. I mean, we've been keeping it in there for 6 years now. We've not had any issue with wax melting or anything like that.
I just want to, hey, Laura, I just want to say hi.
Yeah, but
Laura's from up in Chester, Pennsylvania.
The only time we see wax or the wax moth damage is if we carry frames over into the second year. First year coming off minus 30 takes care of most of it's just the second year if they don't get used.
All right, Lynn's got a question there. Does it only bother the brood comb, or does it bother honey supers?
Well, it definitely will eat where the brood was in the comb out, but they'll leave. You'll see the little tracks in there.
Doesn't if you know how some honeycomb will get some pollen
Mhm.
cells in there? Don't they go after that too?
They can. I mean, I'd just rather be safe than sorry. You know, we have a lot. That's a lot of time and effort the bees have spent drawing all that comb out. I don't want to risk it getting destroyed by wax moths over,
Yeah.
the off season.
Yep, last year I was all excited because I'm like, oh, I've got all this honeycomb drawn, ready to go for next year. Should be a great year. Wrong.
Well, and it's impossible to keep brood out of your honey frames, right? Because you always, not always, I shouldn't say that, but at some point a queen is going to sneak past that excluder and start laying in some of your honeycombs, right? So
Well,
there is some brood comb in just from queens getting by, or maybe we didn't get an excluder on something fast enough and she started laying in there. So there is brood comb in with some of our honeycombs.
And I think that makes a good argument for using all the same size equipment as well, right? So if I had all deep, okay, well, that's a problem. Or all medium for that matter, whatever. If you're using all the same, then you can swap them around, right?
Yeah. But we try not to have brood in our honeycomb because we don't want that brood stain in our comb. So I mean, for us, we do it because we want it to stay cleaner.
Well, Brad made a point to where he said, yeah, but this year's honeycomb would be next year's split comb, right? For his splits. So then every year he's still adding new wax, but they have a prolific flow like that. If I could just put drawn comb on everything, be perfect. But unfortunately, I haven't mastered that part of the process yet.
I just came home for a little bit tonight because I got to get to bed so I can get up and chase thunder chickens tomorrow. So
Thunder chickens?
Yeah.
What's
I
that?
think I've lost 2 swarms this year. One I didn't even know was there. It was up underneath something, and I come out, and they must have been there when it got cold because all of a sudden there's a bunch of dead bees in a big pile. And the other one I caught, and then they decided they didn't want to stay there. And I went out about an hour or so later, and they were coming out there. It looked like a ribbon of bees just flying out. It was awesome to see, even though I didn't like seeing it.
Well,
so were you able to get them, or is that what you got to chase tomorrow?
I got them, and they took off, and I don't know where they didn't. Bye bye. That was the day of the eclipse.
Oh.
And the other ones, they're dead. And I found a little queen. Yeah, but I didn't know she wasn't acting real good. She's laying on the ground. I picked her up, but I don't know if she'll make it or not.
She might have got lost coming back from a mating flight. Seen that happen before.
Yeah.
Where you'll just see them sitting on the hive stand and they got a cluster of bees on them, a small one.
She had a small cluster of bees, but that small cluster of bees was right amongst all them, that great big thing of dead bees.
Mm.
And then I looked up in underneath the umbrella that had you couldn't see from, and there was little pieces of wax on there. So they'd been there for a couple of days. Then we got a cold night, but I didn't see them up underneath there.
Changing the subject, does anyone besides me have a problem with barn swallows or martins?
Yep. Barn swallows.
Yeah. They just got to my place, Doug. They're on their way north. And they showed up today.
Open the big doors in the honey house and they'll fly in and
yeah.
All right, well, I'm gonna get off here. Y'all take care.
All right, Morgan, good to see you.
Right.
Take care.
They're a problem with trying to get queens mated around me because I've got a bunch of them with having been in the cattle business. Well, I've got a lot of barns around, so They
Is that
like
where
to
a
camp in 'em.
scatter gun comes in play?
I don't. I probably couldn't hit him anyway, Charlie.
Well, just make a big path of bird shot and all.
Yeah, the martins don't bother me, but it's those damn barn swallows. Every time you open the door, they want to come in and visit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Our dragonflies, they
Nightly.
seem to hinder queen production around here. At least them coming back, mated. Queen won't fit.
Yeah. So, anyway. So anything happening in the bee yard there, except for that swarm and everything, Bob?
Just stacking supers that
You had that one hive, that big tall hive. Is that honey
that's
supers?
yeah, yep. It's a double deep now. That was ground zero hive. That was the hive that in September was like dead and we didn't know if we were going to make it through winter or not with the mites that we put the Appy tablet on. And then it just rebounded and made it like nobody's business. And it's exploding now. So every time I go out there, I look at the top. If it's full of bees, drop another one on another one right on top of it. So right now it's got 3 deeps and 3 mediums. And I'm thinking if the weather's nice this weekend, I'm probably going to take that. I hate doing it because you have to disassemble everything to do it, right? But might take that second deep and go ahead and shake everything down and put the excluder one more down so that brood can hatch out and they'll backfill it. But they're doing amazing, which is unusual around here, but they are doing pretty well.
What about the other hives? Or are they sort of building up?
Yeah, I mean, I've got some that are doing really well, but out of the ones that made it through winter, those were the ones that are really doing good. All the other ones are nukes that I put in a month ago. So they're trying to do their thing. I do have an issue that, in about 3 weeks, I'm going to have to split. So I don't want to split then, but that's when the queens are coming right from Jose. So that's when I have to split. Probably about 3 weeks. So be right in the middle of the honey flow and have to take a split. Is first of all, it's a lot of extra work because now I have to tear all the honey supers off of it to grab frames out of it to make splits. So it's going to be.
How many queens are you getting?
What's that?
How many queens are you getting?
25 are coming. So it's not ideal, but I mean, those were actually queens that were ordered last fall that are being replaced, and this was as soon as he could get them to me. So there's not much choice in it. I guess I could, put it up on Facebook or something that I've got.
How's the temperament? Shane wants to know of your hives. Are they still?
No, they're everybody's pretty calm except for I think I've got about 2 hot hives in the year. I always have about 2 that are like a little bit more fussy than the rest of them. But like I'm editing a video where I went in that swarm colony from 2 days ago. They're just as nice and no issues with them. So I did go in a colony yesterday and I grabbed the first jacket that I found, and it was a Guardian jacket. And I got out to the bee yard, and I'm like, well, I'm just going to throw a super on there. Shouldn't need that much, be in there that long. And the zipper from the bottom pop is broke, so it opened up that far, and I started getting stung. And I threw the super on there, threw the inner cover on, put the lid on, started walking back, and went to go grab I figured, well, I can't zip it back down because the zipper's separated at the bottom. So I'll just loosen up the zipper where I can just slide it off over my head. And I reach back to grab the veil, and half my fingers go right through the mesh in it. And I'm like, that was a new suit last year, a new jacket last year. It didn't even last a year. He replaced it. So I did have another one, but it also got tears in the veil. So I was just like, $175. It should do better. That's all I'm saying. Should do better.
Here's what Brian's saying. Pull the old queens out when the queens arrive.
And then put your 2-frame nukes to store to sell. Okay.
That's what I was gonna see. Is if you have 2-frame nukes, just make a bunch of 2-frame nukes instead of making full splits.
Yeah. Just take the frame that's got the queen on it and drop her over.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
that's what I did on that.
Hot swap mated queen. Just put them in there and let them take the candy out, or direct release.
No, I would let them take the candy out.
I'd let them do the candy.
I had those 3 queens that were kind of extras, and I put them in 2-frame mating boxes with the queen cage in there. I actually got them closed up right now. Let them reset their GPS as far as location goes. I'm gonna pull the cork on them, I think, tomorrow. So
I've got I've got those 20 nukes. That's where those are the queens that'll probably get pulled and dropped. But they're doing good. So part of me doesn't even want to mess with them, right? Just let them do their thing because they're doing well.
Right.
So that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I put my stuff in, and I haven't been back since Tuesday. Then I figure I'll check on them a little, start maybe checking on them as far as release Sunday.
Yeah, we put some mated and virgins and some hives on Monday or Tuesday. I'll probably go check on them next week sometime.
Yeah.
You were talking about your bee suit, Bob. I brought mine back to wash. There's so much bee poop on it, I can't tell that from the wood ticks.
How do you wash them, Doug? How do you wash yours?
The hood do separate, but the jacket goes in the washing machine.
Yeah, I throw mine in the sink and just wash it around a little bit.
So we soak ours with OxyClean in the bathtub. Just kind of soak them for a while, then rinse them out, soak them again, rinse them out, and then throw them out on the deck to dry.
Tell you what, I got some of those. You get them at Sam's, but they have them everywhere. But the little pod, like Tide Pod type of deal.
Mm-hmm.
But I get the ones that are unscented. They don't have any fragrance to them at all, and the bees seem to care for those a lot better than they did when we were using just their gain, because boy, they would tear me up when I had that gain on there.
So how's Darren doing?
Pretty good. Just getting all geared up.
How's the bee situation? I haven't seen a video lately.
Yeah, I'll do occasional videos here and there, but I've determined that I'm not going to try to make my beekeeping about YouTube. I just want to be a beekeeper, but I do better if I'm focusing on bees instead of YouTube. But it's
not as easy as it looks, is it?
No, I don't understand how people can do it.
Well, if you're like me, I just do it and then they complain about the video. So I mean, it's just the way it works.
I know.
Oh, well, you should do this. You need a tripod. I'm like, I don't care. This is for me.
Well, everybody who does YouTube videos seems to be the ones that are having trouble with their bees. So there's a correlation there. You got to split your time up in a different way, I guess. But no, my bees are doing good. It's just we're not getting that big honey flow up here, that nectar flow that everybody else is talking about yet. It's just hasn't happened. But I think
it's kind of. I mean, it isn't blowing. It ain't doing a whole lot here yet. This week, the last 3 days in the mornings have been 50, maybe 55 degrees, and then it finally would get up to around 60. Midday. I mean, when Bob was up here last weekend, it was cold.
Chilly.
It was cold.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was cold. Yeah.
You know.
That's why there wasn't that much bee yard footage, because we couldn't go in any colonies, right? Because it was just too cold.
It was just cold.
I know. One day you can go in your bees, it's 70 degrees, and the next 4 or 5 days it's like 45, 50 degrees, and wind's blowing, and it's right. You know,
That's right. You know, it's like with me. I mean, I was under the gun all the time here the last 3 weeks, where 2 weeks ago or a week or so ago, you know, I was trying to get the nucs out the door, and I know I'm going to Georgia, and then I went to Georgia and got back, and then it's like, okay, I know on the 20th or so, bees are supposed to be arriving. So then it's like, I'm talking to Brad and everybody here on the chat, and I got to get into these hives that still have queens and dequeen them. You know, so they have 4 or 5 days of being queenless for higher acceptance rate. And then get in there this past Tuesday and go through all the hives frame by frame and cut out any swarm cells or queen cells that they're trying to make, and then install the queens and stuff. And then after you did that on Tuesday, which was nice weather, then we had another big cold spell for the next 4 days.
Yeah.
And everything that it wouldn't. And then they were calling for frost virus at night. And I'm like, goodness gracious.
Yeah. We had the same thing.
Give me a break.
I was looking at my YouTube shorts that I did last year. The reason I started doing them was so that I'd have a note, like notes for myself, right? So I'm looking at my shorts last year. Last week, I started supering. So I thought, well, I'm going to do that this year, right? I'm late on my supering, my honey supers. None of my hives are even ready for a super yet. Yeah, I might have one that's going to be ready for one, but we're like a week or two behind this year, you know, than we were last year.
Yeah, everybody talked about being ahead a week or two, and around here, I think we're just kind of like here it is, the 26th of April, and it's cold and it's frost advisories and stuff like that. And usually by mid-April, things are halfway decent and settled in.
Yeah.
You know, now they say next week, starting Sunday, and we're going to get in the 80s throughout the week for the most part.
Yeah. And maybe that's going to be the start of it. But I'm not complaining, Charlie, because I'm still not ready. I'm still I just got some nucs painted up, and I still got to order some frames, and which is one thing that I wanted to ask you guys about, like the plastic frames that you guys are using. Not to switch the topic, but I think, Charlie, you use acorn frames, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do
I
you guys
use triple wax acorn.
What do you guys, and Bob, you do too, right? I don't know who else uses plastic frames. I think Melissa, you don't
away from them.
We have some. Motherlode actually just sent us some. We just popped them in hives like last week though, so I can't really comment on how they're doing. But I know Motherlode has they carry plastic frames also.
I like them. It's a love-hate relationship for me. I like them, but where I'm at, I've got to be I can't leave them just laying out because they'll warp, right? However, I can lay them out for just a few minutes, and that wax will soften right up on them, right? I mean, it'll just like refresh it.
You're right there. I mean, when it's hot in the middle of the summer, you got to be very careful. Especially, I mean, my acorns are black.
But you can do that with plastic foundation wood frames too, right?
Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to keep them out of the sunlight.
Yeah. Because we run black plastic foundation in our brood boxes. It's the same thing. You put them in the sun and that wax starts melting, heating up real quick.
Some benefits, you don't have to put them together, right? They're already assembled.
Yep. We buy them assembled on a pallet.
Yeah, but you pay a premium for that usually, Yeah, I get a discount because you're buying a pallet.
Yeah, we're getting a better deal because we buy them a pallet at a time. But I can't tell you off the top of my head what we pay for them. Otherwise, I would.
It's time saved in labor, though. That's why I'm starting.
Exactly. That's why we started buying them by the pallet assembled, is because it was. I mean, there's a video on our Facebook page of us, Tom and I, doing our assembly line of frame assembly. and it looks like Santa's elves putting together, putting together frames. And
I guess Melissa, you'd have a little more information if you wasn't frozen, and you'd wake up your associate over there beside you. He could give you all that information that you're not putting out.
I think she has all the information.
no, it's that's the guy with the information.
Melissa has the information, I think.
I don't have the information. Because Tom talks to Daniel. I don't talk to him, so I don't deal with that part of it. But Daniel at Golden Bee is amazing.
Yeah,
we have winter up here. That's for frame putting together.
Yeah, that's usually, when we were assembling frames, that's when we do it too. Usually in like January, we'd get a little assembly line going. Tom and I would do frames. Our boys would do the boxes, and we'd have, everything going at one time, all the air tools.
I don't know. Is Mother Lode just selling foundation only, or
it's the whole plastic frame?
Okay.
And I bet you they all come from the same Chinese plant. With the
I think all their stuff is USA made. I'm pretty sure Mother Lode stuff is.
I'll have to. Well, last time I was on Mother Lode's site, I've got a bunch of their feeders, but last time I was on their site, they didn't have it on there. Tossed all the plastic frames.
Yeah, toss all the plastic frames. My question is this: what's the difference between having a wooden frame with a plastic insert or just having all plastic? Except for the size of the frame, I think there's a little bit of difference there between.
They're a little bit narrower too.
Well, I don't like how the plastic frames flex when you hold them. They flex. I don't like that, and I don't like how they're smooth. And so when you set it down on anything, it will just slide out from.
Which is exactly why I started going back to wood, was because in my uncapper, the little tabs that's set out for the frame to rest on as it's going through the uncapper, they're round, and it slides back and forth as it goes down through, as compared to the wood ones are a little bit thicker and they don't.
If that uncapper, what I just watched that video from Better Bee is, and it's what you're saying is that you got to have one or the other and adjust that machine for one or the other in order for it to work. And there's slide frames.
Yeah, but it only slides so far. That's the problem. It only slides so far, right? So you really have your frame. Well, that's a bad way to show it. But you have your frame coming down, and it sits on two little round metal nubs that sit out. And it just balances as it goes through, and then it pinches and guides through, right? And if you're running wood and plastic, well, the wood is fatter, so you have to have it looser. And if you don't want to change it every time, well, then the plastic has slop in it, and it can bind like. Well, I showed a video last year where I was doing it, and it just destroyed a plastic frame in there. So, so you just gotta do it slower, right? You can't just go to town on it. But it's all a learning curve.
The Mother Lode does say we're committed to innovating more American-made beekeeping supplies. So I'm assuming all their stuff is American-made.
My uncapper does all that automatically, Bob. Those adjustments. Her name's Savannah.
I'll tell you in July how it works.
Let's see.
I've never used plastic, so I don't know whether they'd go through the cowling or not.
Charlie, you like your acorn frames?
Yeah, I like them. Like I say, I'm not going to sit there and build frames. I don't have time.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. Like, I don't even want to do that anymore.
And I for me, I get a case of frames. I put them from the case right into the hive, and I'm done.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have an uncapping machine. I'm still using a hand plane. Probably never will get an uncapping machine. I pretty much got pretty much all the stainless and aluminum ware that I need. I got my hive lifter. I got my bottling tank. I got my extractor. I don't think I'll go any bigger. I mean, I got an 18 frame extractor. What if I done it ever again? I might get a 20 frame license, but I don't think I would need a 30. And I got my uncapping tank. Yeah, that might be, it would be nice to be a little bit bigger, but as Bob, like on my back porch, as Bob came in where my bottling tank is, that's my honey house. So and it has to be, for me, my equipment must be portable. I must be able to carry it and store it someplace, because I'm utilizing a room temporarily and then I'm done after 3 weeks.
Shane, you can order them directly from. Oh, well, maybe you can. I forget you're in Canada.
Never say never, Charlie.
I don't know. What do you mean? For what? You know, buying the machinery?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
If I was up there, I probably wouldn't even keep bees. Maybe 5-10 hives, and then I would drive over to that to Gamber Container and buy Dutch.
Well, see, what you have to do is, Bob, is you have to line up a road trip and get yourself a box trailer or something, and then you come up and you can visit, and then you go to Gamber, which is about an hour away, and then you have it lined up where you pick up so many cases of bottles and whatever and lids and stuff like that,
and 2 or 3 barrels of honey, and then roll back to South Carolina.
Yeah, get your, while you're at it, you might as well get yourself a Hummer bee.
So Texas Beekeeper says she doesn't see the frames on Motherlid's website. I'm looking too. I don't see them either. He just sent those to us a few weeks ago.
I saw the mini mating.
Like he sent us some things to try out. So maybe those are one of the things that they're just trying out that they're not selling yet. I'm not sure. So that might be why they're not on the website.
Charlie, you don't have a Savannah.
I don't get that.
That's her name. The uncapper's name.
That's the young lady that helps me, Charlie. Her name is Savannah. I'll make her do all the uncapping.
Tell Savannah I got a job up here for her too if she wants one.
Well, Larry, as far as I'm concerned, I wouldn't buy a 12 frame. If you got any kind of equipment, I would get either 18 or I could get a 20 frame. Look at wasn't it, Bob, that you can buy a Hilco 20 just as cheap as a licensed 20 or something like that? Or
they were really close to each other in price, the license and the Hilco. But everybody that's gotten a Hilco has said they liked it so far. So I can't.
We have one at Hilco's extractors. I like it.
Yeah, there's a lot of good reviews on the Hilco extractor. That's
because everybody started buying them.
They have great customer service too.
Well, I like John, and I don't have any problems with Hilco at all. But his warranty is longer than he's been a company. So, we've all seen companies come and go. So when somebody's warranty is longer than they've been in business, then I wonder, is that warranty going to be available if you need it when it's time, So that's the only thing that I've ever questioned about any of that. But everybody that's gotten them has said they liked it,
All I know is anytime that we've had an issue with anything, which has been like once, maybe twice, John has been super fast about correcting it and like overnighting whatever we needed,
So
no issue.
All right, let's go down a rabbit hole.
Uh-oh.
Here's a rabbit hole for you. My thing is, you're not the first person that I've heard that has gotten something from them and it's been damaged when they've received it. And he has taken care of it. However, when I'm spending $2,000 on a piece of equipment, I don't want it to be damaged at all when it shows up to my place. Right? That's kind of that's like the first line of customer service.
So let me tell you this. So our thing wasn't necessarily damaged. Something just wasn't put together correctly. So he sent the part that then needed to be replaced, overnighted it, and like he went above and beyond and gave us like store credit, like a significant amount. I thought for what we were dealing with anyway. So
But at the end of the day, if you guys are happy with it, that's all that matters.
yeah. So I mean, he went above and beyond to correct the issue, right?
Right.
So if he's standing behind his things and going above and beyond to correct any problem, then I kind of don't have. I don't see me getting that kind of customer relation from Dedant, or Man Lake if I had an issue with their equipment.
Well, all I can speak to is all of my equipment that I've ordered has been from Better Bee, and I have had not one piece of damaged equipment show up, no issues. So I haven't had to utilize that. So would it be good? I don't know. It hadn't been an issue. So
So this is actually this is the first extractor we have from. I mean, this isn't the only piece of equipment that we have of his, but that's the only one that we've had issue with, and it wasn't a huge deal, and he corrected it right away. So,
well, I just remember Gus Mitchell had bought a bottling tank, and it had a big dent in the side of it, and he wasn't happy with that. And there was a couple other people that said they had a few things like that had happened. So, I mean, I don't know. It is what it is. If you want to buy it, buy it. That's I've just been happy with he bought it with a dent and got a discount. Okay, there you go. See, only see half the story on YouTube most of the time.
I think Hilco on a lot of their products, well, a few of them actually, they actually have a disclaimer that they may come with a dent.
Really?
I think so. I'm pretty sure they do because I was on their site the other day. I don't know if it's their uncapping tank or something like that. I think it says that it's could possibly arrive with dents. But
well, I know both my extractor and both of my uncapping tanks that I bought, and they came bolted onto pallets in crates.
Same for me. We have the same extractor.
Right. They were bolted down. So something would really have to be wrong for those to be dented up when they got there.
Or maybe it's their clarifier, maybe that they're talking about. I think
I'd be a little concerned if it was a water jacket and heated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So Brian said he had a dented part on his bottling tank. Okay, and Better Bee replaced it quickly. All right, so okay, so maybe I'm just the outlier here. But depending what you get and who ships it, probably we all seen it. I mean, hell, I've been here, and UPS and FedEx have just like thrown the package off the back of the truck. I think they really just back in and open the door and hit the gas and let it fall out the back sometimes. I'm like, why is this back here and why is it just laying here like crazy?
Charlie, share some of your popcorn with Bob. He's right next door.
I tried to share it with him last weekend, but he wasn't interested.
Yeah, we went to the restaurant. The first thing they did was bring out a bowl of popcorn for Charlie. And that's not a lie. That's a true story.
Well, I needed to ask you, did you go to the Cyclorama?
No.
You didn't? That's the best part of Gettysburg. I thought he's not going to go. I got to let him know to go to the Cyclorama.
It was kind of a side note, right? I went up there to see Charlie and was hanging out with Charlie. And then I was like, well, how far are you from Gettysburg? He's an hour and a half. I said, so, okay, I guess we're going, once we leave here, we're going to go up to Gettysburg for a day. And then we didn't leave Gettysburg till like 2 in the afternoon. And then we drove all the way back here. So
yeah,
it was
well, when he was up there at Lloyd's, he's 15 minutes from the Pennsylvania line. And then we had just over the line and we had supper and you were probably half an hour, 45 minutes from Gettysburg.
Yeah, we weren't in any rush either. So we just kind of went the scenic route there, and went through the. It was I prefer that trip as compared to seeing just I-95 or something like that all the way, because you don't see much, right? Just more cars and frustration. But it was a great trip. I enjoyed it. If it wouldn't have been a Friday night for Saturday delivery type of thing, would have probably said, "Hey, gonna be here. Everybody come to the Cracker Barrel or wherever we're meeting, and we'll get some food."
Yeah.
Bob, did you take your own personal makeup artist for use on Charlie, or did you hire one once you got up there?
We hired one when we got up there.
I thought it looked nice.
Yeah, we had a good time.
It's like that. He was showing me on Bob's phone Bob was showing me his phone, and the shot where it shows me standing there in the whole bee yard, and then it showed me a close up of me standing there with one of the hives. He shot those two photographs from the same location, and
standing in the same spot. Click.
Same spot, and zoom. That thing zoomed in that good. I was surprised. I mean, that was what, 30, 40 feet at least.
At least, yeah. I had to keep going back because that row of bee colonies that you see behind Charlie there, that's only part of them, right? So when you stand back, you have to go really wide to see all of them in the row.
Well, the bees start at the front of the barn there. That barn's 80 feet long. And then there's another, 30 some feet there, 40 some feet out there. So my row is up like 120 some feet long and all, or more. Never really measured it. So Alex, welcome. What's happening?
Not much. I haven't
You
been
get
able
the
to see
snow
my
all
bees
dug
for the
out?
past 3 weeks, so I'm anxious to go see them tomorrow.
Going to get into them tomorrow?
Yeah, I haven't been able to see them past 3 weeks. The temperature was just on the weekends too cold and too rainy. So tomorrow I'm gonna go see them and probably equalize some of them, because I got a few of them that came out like in good health but small. So I'm gonna do some equalizing. And hopefully
What's spring flower? I guess the spring flower for us is the dandelions, and once you see the dandelions, that's when the flow starts for us.
yeah, they've started popping over here.
Yeah, they popped here a couple weeks ago, I think, 1 or 2 weeks ago.
A few days.
And I got the hives that are tall ones that got supers on them. They've got some honey in, not a lot, but some.
And I gotta finish collecting the winter stuff from one of the apiary. I just stacked it there because it was just too muddy. Now the temperature's been somewhat drier. Only rained a couple of days this week. I should be able to just remove everything.
No, the biggest thing is it ain't snowing. We kind of passed the snow time, I guess.
Yeah, we had some snow this week, but it melted almost immediately. But yeah, I think Tuesday it snowed for maybe 30 minutes, and then it all melted away. But it's done now. No more snow.
Well, I can definitely smell the honeysuckle out in the yard now here, but my privet still hasn't popped open.
Did your bees work the honeysuckle, Bob? Or
I don't know. They're bringing it in from somewhere. I don't know what they're hitting right now, but it's kind of once those privet trees open up that I've got, it's game on for sure here.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not an expert on pollination, but I've got thousands of bush honeysuckle around me, and I never see bees work it.
Okay.
It smells,
Maybe they don't. Smells good.
I never see bees on it.
I don't really notice it either.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're bringing in by us either, but it's clear, like clear. But I don't know what it is, because the black locust closer to the city's blooming, but it's not blooming out by us. So I have no idea what they're bringing in that's so clear nectar.
And we're only 2 months away from the summer socialist, as Charlie calls it.
Yep.
Whatever, solstice or whatever the hell it's called.
Solstice.
I'm getting some of those socialist queens hatched out for me, so
Yeah, I don't know whether that's really all that true or not as far as them being better. I do know that I've talked to breeders and stuff, but it's harder to get them bred at that time. Lack of drones, or there's a lot of dragonflies and things like that after them. Hey, Carl.
I think it's more predation than it is, than it is lack of drones. That's my own personal opinion.
So, Darren, is your bees building up? I mean, it's the video I did see. Some of them were kind of lacking. Some of them actually died out on you. I think, wasn't it a nuke or something? Yeah,
Yeah, I had that nuke. It died out on me. That was my favorite nuke, and it was it sucked because that was my favorite nuke, and then it didn't need to die out. I just neglected it. It's one of those things. I thought I had enough to get it through the spring, because I've always had this thing where, like, if your bees make it into everybody, the bee club and people I knew said if your bees make it into March, then they're golden. They're going to make it. Well, this one made it into April.
I don't know what bee club you're in, but around my bee club, it's March is considered the starvation month.
Yeah, I know. And then, like, but in hindsight, like, that's the way it was. That's what we talked about. Like, as long as they make it into April, they're golden. But that's obviously not true. So I lost that hive, because that's the hive I wanted to raise my queens off of. But anyway, that's the one I lost. So I'm down to 8 hives, and I don't know. I mean, other than that, my bees are doing good. I have a couple that are kind of like a little bit lagging, and I'm trying to boost them up a little bit with some frames of brood and stuff like that, just to try to get them going. But I think I might do pretty good this year compared to other years.
Well, how did your those insulated covers or feeder shims, I guess you would call them, they looked like they really worked nice.
They did, and then, like, I made a few changes, like, last year, and that was one of them, and I think that was probably one of the things that really helped me a lot. That, and, like, plus the way I was, like, treating my mites and stuff like that, because I kind of did what you, Charlie. I used to only treat my mites, like, in the fall, then I didn't touch them again, right, till, like, the next year. But then I started following kind of like what you were doing, not exactly, but I started treating, like, throughout the winter and doing different things, and I think that helped. And I think that insulated top cover, I think that might have helped. My bees are stronger this year than they typically are. They went into winter kind of weak, so they seem like they came out stronger than they went into winter. So I overwintered a couple hives. I thought there's no chance of these, and they still made it. So.
Well, what I liked about your thing was you had a nice wooden rim, and then you put the foam cover on there, and then you left, what is it, about an inch or so for pollen patty or some sugar that you could put in there?
About an inch and a half, maybe. About an inch
and then
a half.
What got me is that studying some information, about the heat dome, and having Frank Hirschbeck, I think it is, he was up there in the New Hampshire area where they really are cold up there. And he says, the heat forms up the top, and the bees will be up in the top where it's nice and warm. And they survive much better and stuff. So that's something that I want to kind of look into making myself.
Every year I come out in the spring with tiny little clusters. And it's just like they're so small, right? And then this year, though, I had a couple smaller clusters, but I didn't have anything bustling like you had that last year, the year before, when you opened up your hive. Remember that? And it was just going crazy. Like, I didn't have anything like that, but my bees looked a lot better this year than they ever did. So,
well, I think it's like people asked me about. We were talking about treatments, and the other little. Where Laura and myself were on the other chat before we come on to mine. And um, you know, they talk about, you know, using multiple treatments through the year. And also I treat mine through the winter, where if it gets around 45 degrees, I hit it with OA about once or twice a month. And I find it maintains that low mite load. And then I also hit them with Aprivar and Formic Pro before the winter hits. I like to use some Apriguard, some thymol, but it just always seems to be too hot. I might try a couple hives, you know, in July and through August when it's the hot, but give them only 25 grams and see if they can survive with that and all. Doug, have you ever have done thymol in your area at all? No.
Acid and Apivar.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I've definitely seen in the last 2 years where I did Aprivar and then Formic, and then the mite drop after oxalic acid was minimal, hardly any. I did Formic Aprivar in September, and the mite drop when I hit him in late October, 1st of November was quite a bit. So the Formic, you know, I'll say that Aprivar is okay. Formic's better. It has a better kill ratio.
When are you doing the Formic, Charlie?
Around September. When it's, well, like this year we had a week, we were about a week late. That's because we had a week that was around 99 degrees. I mean, it was about close to 100 degrees, 99 degrees, something like that, 95, low humidity. So it really didn't feel bad to us, but I waited till the following week, and we had a 2-week area that was somewhere around 75 to 80 degrees, low humidity. And I'm dropping 2 pads of Formic on my 10 frame hives. And it's, you know, for a 2-week treatment.
Yeah.
And, you know, as long as you got that first 4 days of, you know, 80 degrees or less for low humidity, then you don't have any queen issues, I find.
See, we do Apiguard right after we pull honey supers. Usually Tom and the boys are pulling honey supers, and I'm doing mite washes and throwing Apiguard on the hives.
How much are you putting 50 mils on there, or just
I think it's 25.
or?
We do the two doses. I think it's between 25 and 30. I can't remember off the top of my head.
Your 2 doses, which usually it's 50
because we buy the
50
tub
mils for 2 weeks. You use the tub, don't you?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. You use probably 50 milliliters for 2 weeks, come back in 2 weeks and do another treatment, right?
Yeah. I quit using that squirt thing because that syringe gets clogged up and it's annoying. So I just have a plastic spoon, you know, by looking at it, how much is supposed to be on there after you've done it a few years. So I just take a spoon and plop some on there.
And what's your temperature at that time?
In July, it can be in the 90s. I mean,
and you don't have any queen issues?
We've not had any queen issues using Apiguard, and we do it in July as soon as we take the honey supers off. And then we'll do OA usually in November, December, and maybe again in January.
Right.
So that's what we do. So we've never used Formic because I feel like we don't have an appropriate temperature to use Formic Pro unless it's early spring or really late fall. And by late fall, it's already too late. You're already,
I hit him in September.
Yeah.
We
can still get really hot days in September.
Yeah. I mean, I'm looking for a window at that time of year. I got to have a 4 or 5 day window. After that, the off gassing is not that bad.
Yeah.
And it's diminished,
we want to get our stuff treated before September. We want to be done with
I treat, like
August.
I say, from July through August, September through October, and all the way to March.
Yeah. We just do Apiguard and then we do OA in the winter.
We're gonna take a look at Formic this year too.
I tried Formic last year and the results were pretty good.
Yeah, well, the
Tell
thing
them
of it
get up
is,
there.
all the studies that I've seen over the years, going to the conferences and things, 80% of your mites are under the cappings. And I
Mhm.
wouldn't listen to that for a long time. And I was all about oxalic acid. And I had it in my head that if from September through October, I would treat once a week. Then I got at the point where I was treating twice a week for 8 or 6 consecutive weeks and stuff. And then I had a huge loss in my nuke yard, like I did here in my honey area. And so then I finally got it in my head. Okay, you want to use OA when they're as much broodless as possible, which is i.e. the wintertime. And then I had used Mite Away Quick Strips, which is formic, and I didn't know much about it. And so I, read up on it and schooled myself about the pro and all, and I started using it. And I like it. It's easy, per se. I'm gonna try. I want to try the thymol. The thymol, you find, don't they? The brood shuts down. They shut her down.
I haven't noticed it shutting down.
Really?
Mm-mm.
Because I was always concerned.
But at the same time, we're doing it in July and we're coming into a dearth, so she's naturally going to slow down her laying anyway. So even if she does shut down, we probably wouldn't notice it because we're already in a dearth. She's going to be slowing down anyway.
Yeah, and I see with us, we got the spotter lanternfly in the last 2 years. That used to be July and August was a dearth for us, and now the last 2 years, because of this bug, they're bringing in spotter lanternfly honey, which I don't harvest. I just let them have it, for the rest. It saves me on a sugar bill and stuff. So I'll have to try it. I'm going to have to give it a whirl. I think I'm going to go 25 grams this year and see what happens, or at least try half of my hives or something like that, or a certain amount.
Randy Oliver and Bob Binney both say that thymol shuts the queen down for a few days. And he actually, I think in one of his videos, he says that they had actually tried Apiguard and they used it to prevent swarming. I believe he's mentioned something like that, but he said it worked out in his favor.
I think I've heard that. I don't remember exactly what he stated.
Yeah.
I know that Bob this past year had he was talking about Apiguard, and he was talking about the temperature ratios. Some of his friends out in the Midwest, it was 90 plus degrees. He said, I wouldn't even think about putting it on there at that temperature. But I still say, and they had Nod on here and all that stuff. And I'm like, humidity plays a huge part in this stuff. And, if you ever work bees in hot humidity, they don't like to be played with when it's humid. And I think the humidity affects the bees just like it affects the humans. You can have 90-degree weather with low humidity, and it only feels like it's 75 degrees or 80. If you got 90-degree or let's say 80-degree weather with high humidity, it feels like it's 110 degrees. And I think the fumes, the gassing off, I think it magnifies the intensity of it when there's high humidity.
What I've noticed with oxalic, when it's humid, Charlie, it hangs more in the air. The air is heavier or something.
It's on the molecule, the water molecules.
And it'll just hang in there, right? It actually does a better job, I think.
Yeah.
So I think it was last year, it was either last year or the year before. Bob Binney actually did a video on using Apiguard, and he was doing it, and instead of doing the 2 treatments of 50 grams or whatever, I think he was doing 3 treatments of like 30 grams or something like that.
33. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's basically you want 100 grams total. And you can do 4 weeks of 25 or 3 weeks of 33 grams and stuff like that. And I know that what's the guy's name, Bob, down in South Carolina? Craig Branch.
Oh, he's in North Carolina, yeah.
North Carolina. He was doing, it was in the 90s, and I think he was doing 25 grams, and he didn't seem to have any problems and stuff.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Darren said that I think it was Darren that said that they said that the queens do shut down, which she may, but we're in a dearth at that time, so she's already shutting down anyway, or slowing down anyway. So it's not really that big of a deal if she does kind of shut down for a period of time.
Yeah, that makes sense, Melissa. Like I wouldn't use it before the honey flow or anything like that, but
right.
Well, another thing is you want to put a shim or a medium to give room for the bees to, the idea behind all that stuff is for the bees to grab it and take it out of the hive and distribute it.
Yeah. We put shims on.
Yeah,
like Apricot is like kind of like a low threshold too. Like if you have a high mite population, like it's not going to do much, I think, right? I mean, it's more like
do you get the American Bee Journal?
Do I?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they got what was it 2 months ago? I think it was the Bee Journal. Randy Oliver, they had that article in there where he was doing extended relief thymol homostote blocks. And what was it, Bob? 98%? 98% kill.
It says under normal conditions and 93% efficacy is what pops up.
That's huge. So it's got a good natural kill rate, and it's natural. It's a organic. So I'm like I say, I got a tub sitting here. I don't know. I had somebody here last week, and he said he used it and it about killed his queen. So I don't know. I'm just gonna have to experiment with it.
Yeah, we've been using it since we started beekeeping, and we've not had any issue.
Really?
That's like 7-8 years now.
Okay.
I can't imagine doing the OA, the multiple treatments of OA before the instant vape, and having that pan, the little pan, whatever you call it.
Yeah, I mean, I started out with a wand.
Oh my gosh.
I started out with a wand, and
is that what you do, Darren? You use the little
I had a wand, and this is my thing. Like when I was telling Charlie earlier that I've changed so many things in my beekeeping. One of those things that I've changed was I got rid of the wand, and I actually got like a vaporizer, because that wand, like half the time, it didn't even burn. It didn't even burn the oxalic acid. Yeah. For me, it didn't, and I never knew if they had a full dose or not. And I think that's one of the things that really changed in my beekeeping.
Well, I think we used that wand like our first year of beekeeping. I'm like, this is forever. Like we probably would have stayed at 3 hives in our backyard if I had to use that thing. And then we bought one of those John Oliver's, the Jonos.
Yeah, that's my first vaporizer too.
Vaporizers. But you still had to hook it up to the battery, and then the whatever you had. That's Tom's department, hooking all that.
I had that.
And we had that, and then Rob came out with the instant vap, and we jumped right on that. Now we have both of those models, and I tell you what, we did a yard in less than 10 minutes probably. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean before Laura B, that I had bought a ProVap, and I still use the ProVap with the generator and stuff like that.
But that InstaVat with the Milwaukee battery on it is amazing. Like it's just no cords, nothing. You just get it and go.
I know, but listen, like I'm still hooking up to the battery even with my vaporizer, and like that's a pain in the ass. But I have a hard time pulling the trigger on $500 or whatever for the battery operated one. That's
the thing of it is though, it's $400 for the machine and $400 for the battery.
Oh, I know. Yeah, right.
$400 for the battery. The battery's not $400.
Well, the batteries
you get a 5 or 6 amp hour job. It's going to be up there.
Maybe like $100.
No, they're more than that, Melissa.
Yeah.
Look it over at your banner now. Tell him to get on here if he wants.
I know.
Information.
You tell him, JW.
Get up. Sleepyhead.
The problem with a battery, they start dying the first day you use them too.
They do. That kills the battery doing that.
Well,
Kills
Yeah.
the car battery.
I usually use a separate battery to warm.
My problem is like I got some DeWalt drills, and they got them new little thin batters, which them suckers, they're dead every time I go pick one up. And the old ones usually are okay, but every time you go battery operated drill, whether it's either half dead or whatever. And I'm like, you know what? I got my Honda generator and my cord. It ain't that much. I'll just continue on with my generator. I know it'll work.
I don't know. We've got about 1.5 million of those batteries in our garage because that's what Tom uses for all of his equipment.
See,
So
you guys are throwing me under the bus here because she has the idea that those batteries are $100.
I
And
know
then here you guys are telling her
No.
they're 400. Thanks a lot, guys.
they're not $400. I've been to the store when you've bought them.
She thinks that all my guns only cost $50 too. So you guys gonna give her the bill down to that stuff too? I
That's what happens when you sleep on the job.
He's going to be sleeping on the couch the rest of the night.
Yeah.
She's still nice and vibrant because she probably slept in today. I probably woke up at like 5:30 or 6 because I couldn't sleep.
Poor baby.
Headed out the door doing work all day long, working in the rain, and then got to come back home and start working on bees, and had to convince her that we needed to get this done, and luckily we did. So, you know,
And then 4 storms
job.
later. Have you learned to take and put extra boxes and equipment on your truck before you leave the house?
Generally, I
Yeah.
do, but it was raining when I left, and I wasn't trying to put all kinds of, you know, especially if any of it had drawn comb. I don't want those cells to fill up with water, so I kept minimal on there. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I did not think that we would have potential swarms hanging in any trees. You know, Melissa told you there was 4 of them. I believe 2 of them were probably were hanging on the branches of the cedar trees, and probably because the wind was blowing very hard, they probably somehow separated a little bit. But I treated them all separately. It's 4 separate ones, put them in pro nukes when we got back in, as it was literally starting to pour even harder.
It was pouring.
And one of those swarms was kind of mean because I just had on a rain jacket and I put on some disposable gloves. Yeah, that I usually wear. And of course, you know when they're trying to be mean because they immediately pop off whatever they're hanging on and they go right for my wrist. Now, and I didn't pull any stingers out for probably 10 or 15 minutes because I was busy. And actually, this is the first time I've actually swelled because I've got 3 or 4 stings in my wrist, and the stingers stayed in there probably the entire length of time for them to pump the whole full load of venom into my, skin. So I actually have
Well, I think if those bees were popping off like that, them suckers would have just stayed there.
Well, I'm guessing because it was really windy and those cedar
windy, it
trees,
was
they were
raining,
blowing
yeah.
those things around pretty good.
Yeah.
And then, of course, it was raining on them, and there was even some lightning, and I'm hanging 15 or 12 feet in a cedar tree trying to retrieve them, So,
Well, that's what you have wives for, to do stuff like that.
you know what, Charlie? Or JW, I agree with you. But you know what? I can't get her to do half of that stuff, It's kind of like motivating my boys sometimes. I'm like, it's like a full-time job here.
So this is a picture of one of the swarms from one of our yards this week. Let's see if it'll.
Here, let me pop it up. There we go. Oh, yeah, that's pretty good size.
Yeah. That was earlier this week.
That's way too low. I would have sent her for that one for
We'll
sure.
see you, Clueless. We're getting ready to shut down anyway. Yeah, so anyway.
He woke up just for the end. How about that?
Yeah.
I was hoping she'd make me a snack before I went back to bed.
If you stay awake afterwards, I want to talk a little bit more about this Apigard with you. If you don't fall asleep on me.
They're asking about the Brian was asking about the frames. When we get a pallet, how many frames are on that pallet?
Oh, I don't remember now. A lot.
A lot.
I answer a lot.
Do you how much
You
we were.
don't get all deeps.
Yeah, all deeps. How much were we paying for those per frame? Do you remember?
And you say, oh, that's from that other.
Bullshit information.
Yeah, if you don't want them all, I'll take, I'll split one with you or something if you want to do that.
Well, I definitely need to get another pallet. I just haven't called them, and we've been extremely busy and such. So, how many are you looking for?
I'll take all you don't want. If you.
Do you want your own pallet?
How many pallets you want? I'll get as many. I mean, he'll.
I don't know how many's on a pallet. I doubt that I want probably a full pallet.
Probably 12 to 1,500.
Yeah.
Oh, you can use that for the next 2 years, JW.
Well, I might not live that long, Charlie. I've got to,
Hey Bob, I don't think there's
chicken,
more than 600 on a pallet, if I remember right, because they're banded in groups of 10, and I can't remember how many they can in groups of 10 they can fit on the bottom row, and then he stacks them up like maybe on a pallet. I want to say 5 or 6 rows high, if I remember right.
And these are acorn triple dipped, supposedly, or heavy dipped acorns.
That's correct. It was either a double. It was either a double or a triple. I can't remember now. And he was using Premier Foundation, but since then, and actually at the at our conference in February, he had since started making his own foundation out of USA plastic. Because I specifically asked him, I said, "Is this China plastic?" And he said no. And I said. And he actually gave me some and said, "Here, try them out. Tell me what you think." And so I have them in hives right now.
I don't know if we have any out in the garage or not.
So
what's the place called? What's it called?
Golden Bee. He's out. He's out toward. I mean, if any of y'all know, JW probably does Sedalia, Missouri, which is I want to say middle to western side of the state. But he's a really solid guy. It's him and his entire family. And he has a lot of children. He's just a tremendous individual.
He's a big tall guy with beard.
That's your conference?
Say that again, JW. I didn't catch that.
The man and the woman back there at the conference. Wasn't that who them are?
He was over by John Hill and Hillco.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. So the 2 young ladies, those were his daughters. I don't believe his wife was there.
Are they Amish or Mennonite or something?
No, actually, they're not. He's from I can't remember.
Outside of Ukraine.
Yeah, somewhere outside of Ukraine. Just a real solid individual.
Nice folks.
He's been here for what, 10 years or so?
No, he's been here for 30.
Oh, 30. Yeah.
But he has a big family, and they're all just tremendous people.
Well, I'd take 200 or 300 for sure.
Okay, well, I mean, no problem. I mean, I need to get a pallet up here right away. I was almost going to call one of my buddies that went down there and picked up a couple pallets early spring. And he said, "Hey, do you need some? I've got my flatbed. I can haul some back." And I'm like, at this time, I think I'm okay, but I probably should have taken him up on it. But we were kind of out of storage space at the moment. So we've cleaned out the container, and there's not nearly as much equipment left in there at the time because it's all sitting out in the yards right now, of course. So I'll have to get in touch with them, and maybe within.
Well, give me a ring and let me know what you find out, and then we'll.
Sounds good. I'll send you a message.
Yeah.
Was there any other questions that I said I needed to ask Tom when he was asleep? I can't remember.
I don't think so.
No.
The thymol, people were asking about thymol.
Yeah.
And
The thymol is the range is 60 to 100 degrees. It works better at 100. Actually, it might even go up to 104. But the general dosage is 2 doses. Each of them have 50 grams, and those doses at 50 grams run 2 weeks. But we did 1 year where we ran on 10-day intervals. We did 30 or basically 33 gram doses. Each one of those doses at 3 weeks. So basically your dosage is a little bit less, but you're going over a longer duration period. So you have more, the idea was anyway, and we kind of pulled this from, I think it was
Bob Benny.
Benny's.
We talked about this already.
Okay.
You were sleeping.
Okay. So
spread it
I
over.
thought
a
about it.
little.
I think I'm going to try some in the next week or two on some in my drone yard. You know, I
Do
don't
you
care
have
if
any
she quits-
supers
I
on
don't
those?
care if she quits laying drones. You know,
Do you have supers on those?
no.
Okay, then you're okay.
Yeah.
I'm just not a big fan myself of using any type of chemical when there's a super on. I know there's some stuff that's safe, but I don't know if there's anything I've learned in my 48 years of life on the earth is that what'll happen is you'll get some information, then about a decade later, they tell you how bad it was for you and you shouldn't have done it, right? So I just like to play it safe, and luckily we have a pretty good season where we can do some treatments that work well whenever it's not without our honey supers on. I know some of y'all gentlemen up north there, you've got a really short window sometimes to treat, so that makes it more difficult for you guys.
Well, when you all pulling your supers, let me ask you that.
Middle of July usually.
Yeah, typically it's after that July 4th date, and that's kind of when I have time to do it and when I motivate myself to pull a lot of honey, and because that takes about short of a week, I have to kind of deal with. So
July
but hopefully it'll be less.
Yeah, around here it used to be July 4th was the cutoff, for honey supers, and I'm finding it's backing up a little bit, into the latter end of June.
Yeah, that was the same for us here. This
last year there was still something trickling in after we pulled
but the
supers.
main honey flow was done.
So we
it's over with.
So we actually threw some undrawn deeps on top of these huge hives after we pulled supers to see if we could get them to pull some comb, and some of them did pull pretty decent comb.
Pulled me a box of comb, or mostly pulled it out.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been trying to cycle our comb out. I don't like to leave comb in the hives too long. I really like listening to Bob Benny's talk on
the sponge effect of the comb.
Yeah, the comb being the liver of the, it stores.
Yeah, it's true. It's holding it. They did that study years ago when CCD was out up at Penn State, and they were just overwhelmed with the amount of pesticides and chemicals that they found in the wax that they had tested. And they had also found chemicals that, like, what's it called? Buvalidate, that they used to use that years ago. Yeah. And here it is in these combs, and like it hadn't been used for over 10 years. And they found out about all that kind of stuff up there.
Yeah.
So,
and that's kind of the same thing that I always think about in my head too. There's a lot of this stuff does go through testing, and I understand that, but there's so much that's not learned until years down the road, and you don't know what the crossover was between two different products that were used and the effects that it might have when the two of those chemicals come into contact with one another.
Thalidomide was a pretty good example.
Yeah, Paul, she wouldn't leave me alone. She kept pestering me. I just can't take a short nap.
He was over there talking in his sleep. It just woke him up. He's like, I need to get these words out to everybody.
No, that's not the case. Hey, JW, I just can't get a break from this lady. I need to come down and hang out with you for a week.
No, I don't want her. Don't bring her.
No, it's just me and you, just the guys. I'll leave her at home.
I've got a Savannah.
I will gladly ship him to you for a week after that.
Well, it's either that or I'm gonna go up to Sawmill Charlie's place, and
that'd be the place.
A lot of property up there. I want to ride my dirt bike a little bit. I can go up there and make a mess of that field.
Scoop sawdust.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's 11 o'clock here. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream for tonight, and hope everybody had a good time, and we'll see you next week. If everything goes well, we'll have a guest speaker next Friday. I still got to get some preliminary details hammered out on that. And it'll be a commercial beekeeper from the United States. So Doug, check it out. All right, we'll talk. We'll go ahead and end the stream.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Night.
everyone.
Good night.